Let me just click go live. Oh, am I controlling it? Looks like I'm controlling it. Yep. Nope.
There we go. I guess you are controlling it.
Yeah, that's unusual. Okay. Yeah, I have to actually click the go live button.
Oh,
all right, good times.
Good to know.
And now something completely different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside.
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hair loss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Coburn's The Bald Truth.
Otar, Otar, Otar. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out and waiting for us to start this broadcast. I'm not even going to talk about it. It is what it is. Apparently, at least this time, there was an issue with YouTube making some changes.
Yes.
Guys, welcome to the broadcast. I'm Spencer Coburn here with Joe. I always forget his middle initial. Tillman, live.
Okay.
He's live from Vancouver, British Columbia. I am live in Los Angeles, luckily, because this entire town is on fire, essentially.
We're getting the smoke from it up here.
Literally and figuratively. But we're still here doing the broadcast, and it's great to be here. This is the Hair Loss Show. If you are new to the broadcast, don't know who we are, who I am, and who this guy is, I am the founder of the American Hair Loss Association. I've been doing this broadcast for a little over 22 years. I am the author, of The Bald Truth, the first complete guide to preventing and treating hair loss, and The Truth About Women's Hair Loss, What Really Works for Preventing and Treating Thinning Hair. I forgot the subtitle of my book that was written 20 years ago, but I think that's it. Been in this game for a very long time. And when you look at what we're doing, and by the way, to introduce Joe, if you're new to the show, Joe is the original hair transplant mentor, a guy who's been in the trenches dealing with his own hair loss struggles, bad hair transplants, 8 repair surgeries, worked for one of the best clinics in North America, and knows where all the fucking bodies are buried when it comes to this field.
I still have my shovel.
And you still have your shovel, yeah. You have a map, man, and that's why everyone is afraid of you, by the way.
That's one of the reasons, yeah.
You have the map. You have all the details.
I'm just distracted by what was said in the chat room.
What was that?
The thumbnail says, that's Joe Tillman's Tinder profile pic. And then right below it says, Spencer looks like he'd be on Christian Mingle.
I don't know why I'm laughing about that.
It's hilarious. Anyway, did you see the thumbnail I made?
I did. That was a picture of me doing an interview at one of the hair transplant conferences with Alan Bauman.
Exactly.
5 years
stole it from Dr. Bauman.
5 years ago, and I have to tell you, I have not changed a bit. I don't know what it is.
Aged well. It's the hyperbaric chamber and blood of the young that you find on the streets.
I think I've mentally changed. I've definitely, it's funny, Joe. I've been thinking
more bitter.
No, actually, it's funny that you say that. I'm not going to say that I'm more bitter. I would say that I've just evolved. I've evolved my thought process about this field and about how to approach what we do and what I do in this field.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mm-hmm. is right.
Yeah. Speaking of Dr. Baumy's in the room.
Dr. B. What's
What up,
happening?
Dr. B?
Got a late start today, Dr. B. Glad you're here. Phone number is 888-659-3727. We'll take your calls in a second. But, I got to really, we're going to put something out through WhatsApp and through Facebook to the hair transplant physician community, probably later today after the broadcast. Just a little promo for the Global Hair Loss Summit.
That'll be exciting.
And I was thinking about what we are providing. And I was thinking about all of the hoopla about the Global Hair Loss Summit. This is all inside information for all of you guys who are tuning in. But what we are doing, I was going to say what we're attempting to do, but what we're actually doing is we are changing the way physicians are inspired and educated in this field. And when I say inspired, there really is nothing out there, in my view, that really inspires physicians to do the fucking right thing for patients. Now, there are self-starters. There are guys who are self-inspired to do that. But those who don't do it really aren't doing their best, who really aren't providing the best possible service. They're not provided with the real-world consequences of not providing the best possible service to patients. They may deal with some unhappy patients or some bad reviews, but they don't have the opportunity in general, or maybe they're unwilling to listen to the stories of those whose lives they have destroyed. And I think that's going to be an important part of what we're doing with the Global Hair Loss Summit as well. To kind of put that in the faces of especially the newer guys who are just getting into the field. The guys who are buying a turnkey device and are being sold, a situation where they can just hire a device maker's quote-unquote certified technicians and just go to town on somebody's head and somebody's life. That type of information isn't provided by other educational resources, self-limiting, just closed-minded resources. You look so into the show today. I have to tell you, Joe.
Well, I'm thinking about I'm listening to you, but it's making me think about something I learned about here in Western Canada that's going on that I'm surprised about, but not so surprised about, but I'm really surprised about. And that is an FUE training center that is actually opened in one of the small suburbs of the greater Vancouver area. And for $5,000, they're teaching training technicians over the course of a weekend or maybe a few days. And I was going to tell you about this earlier, but I've been busy. But I Google mapped it to find out where, just to get a look at the facilities. It's in a strip mall. It's in a strip mall.
Why does that surprise you, though?
Well, because I don't know how they can legally be even performing these procedures to teach on, because I know how restrictive the guidelines are in British Columbia according to the College of Medicine. Very, very restrictive, like prohibitive to even opening a clinic. No one would want to open a clinic.
But what does
in
legality
BC.
have to do with it? So they go in there, they train people for 4 or 5 months, they make a killing, and then they're shut down.
Oh, you mean being open for 4? Yeah. Yeah. I guess so, but it's just I was just thinking about that while you're talking about because it just kind of relates to what you're talking about, and it makes me realize that among other things, that the field is just doomed without this proper direction that GHLS is going to be taking those that are interested in learning how to do things right.
Well, that's actually interesting that you say that, because it is doomed. It really is. And the fact that the old guard, I use that term a lot, is still actively trying to stop the evolution of education in this field. They're still trying to hold on to the educational monopoly of this field. For what? They're not providing anything to anybody except the same boring old, bureaucratic inertia that has stopped the field from evolving in the first place and has created the black fucking market.
Yeah. I mean, I said this quite a while ago, but I see the field eventually branching off into two separate warring factions. After the dust settles, you're going to have the really cheap clinics. I'm not talking about Turkey. I'm just talking about North America. You're going to have the really cheap clinics that will continue to fly under the radar and use really deceptive marketing tactics and, just flat out lying to people just to get them in the door. A lot like the old laser clinics before you could get the caps and the combs, when they had those giant hoods that you'd have to go into a clinic to sit under, and these other clinics where they literally put some sort of bowl on your head that had electrodes in it, and all this crazy stuff. That's going to continue, and it's going to get worse. And then you're going to have this other side where it will be physicians that care. They may not have the background. They may not have the time on tissue that the old guard, as you refer to them, have, but they're going to be interested in getting that time on tissue and pushing their clinic to be more than just a place that offers hair restoration as an adjunct to butt lifts and tummy tucks.
But the problem is that they are going to be lost as far as being able to promote their efforts and get consumers to understand that they have the time on tissue. They are providing state-of-the-art hair transplant surgery. What makes them better than all of these other guys in strip malls? The confusion that is out there is through, obviously, everything that we're seeing through social media, everything that we're seeing, which social media includes Facebook, Instagram, and everywhere else online, all of the Google AdWords. It's become and continued to grow into the commodity that it was started as 30 years ago. And now everyone's freaking out. It's all out of control. They don't know how to handle it. Well, you know what? I believe I fucking figured it out. And that's what we're going to launch with the Global Hair Loss Summit.
Yeah.
A real solution to this issue. Giving the consumer giving the consumer the ability, besides the solution to educating these doctors and getting them involved in doing the right thing, the ability for consumers to really tell what they're getting involved in. Yeah. And it's fucking simple. Now,
it's simple, and it's...
I tried to express this to the ISHRS, that this was a possibility, but they don't want to listen. And now they are out for blood, apparently.
Apparently. It's word on the street.
But we're doing our thing. Phone number is 888-659-3727. And guys, I know that you're kind of interested in the behind-the-scenes stuff. I really just do this for the handful of politicians that are listening to the show. I'm going to be honest. Because it gives them something to run back and whisper about and to send to their fucking colleagues to bitch about Coburn. And for some reason, that gives me a little bit of a thrill.
But why don't they bitch about Tillman?
I think you're just more likable. I don't know what it is. Now, I think I'm going to be candid. I think I'm very likable once you get to know me. But for whatever reason, they just see me as a threat. And you're just less threatening in their eyes. I don't know why, because you're a real asshole.
Thank you.
I
wish more people knew that.
I know you want to hear that.
I wish more people knew that, because maybe I'd get, maybe people would be like, well, Tillman's out to get us, but I don't get that. I try. What do you do?
Dude, come on. They gave you a gig. They gave you a gig.
Yeah, they did. It was pretty fun.
Yeah. You did a good job for them. I mean, they fucked it up, but,
Yeah. Yeah, what do you do?
All right, guys, let's take a phone call. 888-659-3727. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from? Hey, caller. You've been on hold for a long time. All right, call back. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Mordy from Brooklyn.
Morty gets through first call.
Morty!
How are you, man?
Oh, man. So here's a thought for you guys. Both men who are running for the president of the United States have bad hair transplants.
Well,
Yes.
one has worse hair transplants than the other. I would say one had a few questionable procedures, and then he was saved by some good frontal hair transplant work. The other just grew into his bad hair transplant. May have had a little bit of refinement, but kind of just grew into it with his that whole corpse look that he has now.
Are we are we classifying?
Which one are we talking about?
Let's face it. I mean, if you're putting up two,
I got it backwards.
If you're putting up the two candidates and you're looking at who appears, and now we know he's not that healthy, unfortunately, because the president of the United States just announced last night that he tested positive for COVID-19. But the reality is, let's face it, and this has nothing to do with politics. Joe Biden looks. It's like what was that movie that I keep talking about, Joe? Weekend with Bernie. Weekend at Bernie's. I mean, the guy looks like he's being held up by wires at this point.
It really does.
And this has nothing to do with politics. This is just looking at this poor guy. It is like elder abuse to see him up there on stage.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I just bring that up because it's something that occurred to me this morning, and I guess I mentioned that I was going to see a doctor today, which I just literally got back from, and
okay.
I want to talk about it. Yeah, so I went to go see Dr. Dorin.
Did you tell him?
today.
Did you tell him that you're leaving the consultation and going straight to tell Joe and to Joe and Spencer about it?
Dude, do not mix me up with that, Dave.
I told
almost
him
did.
that I would be reporting to you, but there are certain things I'm going to leave out of the report because he asked me to. So,
really?
No.
Why would he ask you? Why would he ask you to leave anything out of the report?
Back up. We're not talking about urine samples and stuff here. Like you can keep that confidential. But why would he ask, or she? I don't know who he went to. Ask that you keep part of it confidential.
Well, okay. I'm going to start with basically the following. So, first of all, it's not a he or she. I'm going to say who it is. It's Dr. Dorin. He's an IHRS member, and that's one of the reasons why he was on my short list. And I will say this much about him. When I filled out his initial forms, there's a spot in there for a reference, and I circled the IHRS. And when there was a spot for a name to put a named reference, I put Spencer in there, so that Spencer is the reference of record. So I wanted to just let everybody on the call know that. The other thing is that after
I don't know how I feel about that, but go ahead.
Well, so the first person I got to see was Peter, who is his consultant, and
I met Peter. Yeah.
Peter and I had been exchanging information about possibly getting a procedure. And, I basically was very upfront about all the different doctors that I've seen and who I've consulted with, including you two gentlemen. And, and he basically took a look at my hair, and then he basically invited Dr. Dorin to have a look at me. Dr. Dorin then came in, and he was very honest about me. And he said something that a number of other doctors basically said about my donor. He said that it was average to below average, and he felt that the amount of donor reserve that I have wouldn't be able to accomplish anything more than perhaps rebuilding a hairline and perhaps giving me a little bit of hair up to the mid scalp. Which is very similar to what all the other doctors had told me. So he felt that therefore that I was probably not a good candidate, and I appreciated that. So that was really good, and I wanted to share that with the callers.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the fact that he turned you away. And but maybe I always wonder if you didn't say Spencer Coburn, what would the assessment would be? Now, I'm not saying that with this particular doctor it would have been any different, but I always wonder that. It's funny. Physicians like to know for ROI where they're getting their leads. And I hate that shit because I actually prefer people to just kind of like go under the radar and then come back to us and see what these people have to say.
I see.
But no, listen, I appreciate it. It's nice. I know that you respect the show, and you heard about him through the IHRS and through the Bald Truth. That's all great. But sometimes I wonder what people's response would be if they thought it came from, I don't know, Hairliciously or somebody.
Okay. Next doctor then.
Yeah, no, let them know. Listen, in a way, for me, for everybody else. I mean, you're a special case, Mordy, but I think for everybody else,
yes, I am. I'm on the short bus.
Yeah. But for everybody else, I think it's important that they say that. Listen, we're going to report back to the Bald Truth, or I've been in contact with Spencer Coburn, because at the very least, these guys are going to be safe. So. Yeah. I think it's probably a better idea to do that. Okay, so what else? Real quick, because we got some other callers.
Okay, so if you recall, the last week we talked about Pepfactor. So he did make an offer to me about Pepfactor, and the numbers that he gave me were very reasonable. It turns out you can't buy Pepfactor yourself. If you are an MD, an RN, or a licensed esthetician, you can buy it, but as just a man on the street, I can't. So I have to, if I want to play with that stuff, I have to, I have to go through a doctor. And
if I were you, I would see if you were able to order that online yourself and see what happens, and just fill out that you're a licensed esthetician. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to get that
number and stuff. The online form wants you to put in the number there. So perhaps with a phone call, maybe we'll see. As far as his understanding of the stuff, it's very, very new. He was willing to work with me on the price. And also there was a certain amount of curiosity on his part too. So, but he didn't pressure me into it. I'm
sorry, there was what on his part? Curiosity?
Yeah, well, I think this is a product that he wants to try to offer, but he's trying to offer it tacitly. He's not making a big deal about it because it's new for his practice and so on. But it's interesting. I mean, what he did tell me, which was interesting about the stuff, is that it's new in the sense that it is it's a fibroblast growth factor, which is synthetically generated, as opposed to, say, the exosomes, which are biologically derived. And so, from his perspective, they're purer and they're of higher concentrations than you would get through PRP or exosomes. That seems to be the way that they're selling it. The other thing about it is it's not as invasive. It's introduced to the skin via microneedling as opposed to being injected into the skin.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, like I said, and I've told you this before. I really have no clue. If it's a reasonable price and you're willing to be a guinea pig, and Dr. Dorin doesn't think it's going to harm you in any way, then that's a choice you have to make.
His view is he was actually a lot more honest about it. He said he couldn't make any promises of whether or not it may be harmful. He said that there is a risk associated with any type of growth factor, specifically in that if you have a melanoma, if you have some precancerous growth in your skin, and you introduce a growth factor, you could hurry it along.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I've never heard about any doctor actually volunteering or giving that response due to a question, because I've heard that possibility in discussions, but it really wasn't shared as a possibility. It's just an idea, kind of like I wonder if, or is there a potential for ... with that kind of reaction. So for him to offer that up, that's pretty ballsy, actually, and hats off to him. I've met Dr. Dorin. He seemed like, I don't know him, but I met him a couple times, and he seemed like a straightforward guy.
He's a good dude. He's a really good dude.
For him to offer that up, I think is that's A+, man. That's really good.
Yeah, and I mean, remember, this is the only thing that he could offer me in terms of selling me anything, right? Because he basically said that I wasn't a candidate for surgery. So, I mean, you're talking about somebody who basically allowed a potential customer to walk out the door. So, I mean, hats off to the guy.
Yeah, listen, I appreciate that, and it's one of the reasons why we want people like Dr. Dorin on the IHRS. They have to understand, and anyone who's with us has to understand that this is not about leads. They're going to get plenty of leads. That's the way that it is. And like I said, if they listen to the show, like what I told you, I even tell people, don't even tell people, just say the internet, so that, you can really get a 100% honest assessment. But that's kind of a double-edged sword, because if they do say they found out about them through the IHRS or the Bald Truth, you know that you're going to get a 100% accurate assessment, because they don't want you running to the show and saying anything that would make them look bad. So, but listen, I'm glad you had a good experience. I'm glad you had a good experience, man.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Anyway, I just called in to report and to tell you guys thank you again for doing what you do, and thank you for helping me find Dr. Dorin.
Listen, man, you got it. Take care. And is it another holiday? It's Sukkot, right?
Yeah, no, Sukkot starts tonight. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, what do you say for Sukkot again?
Chag Sameach. Just Chag Sameach. Happy holiday.
All right, man. Happy holiday.
Thank you, my friend. And Joe, thank you. Thank you for your advice on the stuff. And I don't know, I haven't turned him down cold. But the whole thing about potentially precancerous lesions. My dad died of cancer, or it was a complicating factor in his life, so it's definitely giving me pause. Mm-hmm. But I'll let you know what goes on in the coming weeks.
Oh, I'll tell you what, I have a great dermatologist in New York, God forbid.
Mm-hmm. All right, take it easy, guys.
All right, man, take care.
All right, good night.
Phone number is 888-659-3727, 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Patrick from Indiana. How are you guys doing?
You said Patrick?
Hello, Patrick?
Yeah, that's right.
How are you, man?
Yeah, hey, I'm good. Thank you. I was calling. Love listening to your show, and Spencer and Joe, you guys are what all of us need out here, and you guys are the sages that we look to. So thank you for what you do. But I was calling in particular because I saw a video recently from Joe regarding Dr. Zarev out of Bulgaria, and having done some more research on him, having done a little bit more research into his social media and his website, he's getting results that I can't see anywhere else. 3 to 4 times the coverage and the grafts being drawn. So I was just wondering if you don't mind sort of talking about that more in detail, and maybe letting us know what he does differently than everybody else, and if it's worth looking into.
Sure, I'll let you handle it.
Well, I think it's quite simple. You said 3 to 4 times more coverage than what you've seen with some other clinics. It's because he's transplanting 3 to 4 times more hair. I mean, it's pretty simple. When you look at the cases that I had on that particular video, I forgot the numbers, but like 12,000 or maybe 13,000 grafts, I thought, from FUE only, and only from the scalp. If you can get that many grafts in any method, FUT, FUE, whatever, it's going to create a hell of a result. I don't care how bald you are, but you have to have the hair, right? I don't know a lot about him. I included him in that video just as an example of, I'm trying to remember which video it was. It was the video of different, was it the video I did about different extraction techniques, that it doesn't matter about the technique, it's the hand, the hand that's wielding the tool? Was that the one?
I believe it was that one. You went through 3 or 4 different possibilities there, yeah.
Well, I went through several, and he was one of them, because I felt like that was, obviously it was going to get a lot of reaction, but he does have his own tools. Like he has developed tools that he uses in house that he considers to be proprietary, as a lot of clinics do. But I'm not going to. What I'm about to say is not because he told me this. but it's a philosophy that I believe in, and I'm sure that he is utilizing this approach, and that is to utilize the entire donor scalp, which is not the same donor scalp for FUT. This is something that used to be debated like just till we're all blue in the face years and years ago in the forums, and doctors were debating this behind the scenes as well about what is the true safe donor zone, and the idea that you have to go along a very narrow area of the donor scalp to make sure that you've got DHT resistant hair is a myth, and it's only a myth because that's how doctors did it for 20 years, for 30 years. They didn't consider going higher up towards the fringe of the crown, or lower down towards the nape of the neck, or above the ears, or into the forward temples, like the temple points just behind there. But a few doctors started doing that, like Karai Erdogan and what's his name in Madrid? My boy Jose Lorenzo. These guys started doing that years ago because they had the foresight to say, why do we have to take it along the donor strip area? That doesn't make any sense. And that's what I'm certain Dr. Zarev is doing as well. He's utilizing that entire area. So when you look at doctors like Erdogan and Lorenzo and the coverage value that they came up with, which is in a formula for calculating how much hair is in the donor area and how much is needed for the recipient to get some kind of result, then it all starts to make sense. Now, for the record, I don't believe in the approach of coverage value 100%. Like the philosophy behind it, I believe is sound. But it's based on, and I could be wrong, like it could have been modified since I last looked at it. But the idea behind it is, or the guiding principle of it is that, you don't even lose or perceive a reduction in density of your hair until you've lost 50% of it. That's what coverage value is based on, and that is an approach that doctors have taken for many years when determining how much hair they can take from the donor area and how much density they need to establish in the recipient area. So you don't need to have, say, if you have a native 80 grafts per square centimeter, you don't need to have 80 grafts placed to get the appearance of fullness. In their view, their view being doctors that believe in that 50% rule, 50% or 40 grafts, 45 grafts per square centimeter, roughly 50% of that 80 is all that's needed to be transplanted. I don't follow that principle. I don't believe that because I've seen far too many cases where it just doesn't apply. It just doesn't work that way. But back to Dr. Zarev and his approach, I'm certain that that's the guiding philosophy behind his extraction approach, where he's going as wide as he can, even for smaller cases. And that's what I believe needs to be done. Even if it's 1,000 graft case in the donor area, you go wide, you go tall, you go deep, you go as far into the entire donor area as you can, because it really spreads out the extraction spaces in between, or the spaces in between extraction points. And I think that's what he's doing.
But
when you do that, I think that you can get more grafts.
But that could also lead to potential long-term problems that I think everyone has to recognize. The one thought the one thought that we all have is, and being in the field for so long, is that the sweet spot of the donor area where you can take out that strip is thought to be relatively DHT resistant. Is it completely DHT resistant? As we know, no. There's no guarantees that hair will not miniaturize once it's moved sometime in the future, if it was programmed to miniaturize sometime in your lifetime. The more you go outside of that so-called safe zone, higher, lower, more to the sides, the greater chance that you're going to have miniaturized grafts as you get older. Mm-hmm. So what I think is important is patients understand that going in, that this may not be a lifetime situation. You may start to miniaturize again in 10 years. Is it worth having that much hair moved to you? And is it worth the possibility of having to deal with this or the progression starting again 10 years or 15 years down the line. For a lot of guys, it is worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good question because he's charging 3 to 4 euros per graft. And when you're talking plus 10,000 grafts, it gets up there pretty quick, as you guys know. And it was just striking to me because we've all seen thousands of before and after photos, and he took someone who had shaved head, Norwood, I guess it's like 6 or 7, like all the way back, bald, and the next photo 7 months later, he's got full coverage. They probably did some things here and there, stylish wise to make up for it, but it looked fantastic. It was like a different human being. And that was the first time I'd ever seen that.
The point is, if you can style it to where it looks like it's a full head of hair, then it's essentially a full head of hair. It's full coverage.
Yeah. And that's the key. If you're removing that many hairs, and if you have a great team, everything's being handled properly. If the thing is, the end result is really only as good as the weakest link of that team. So every graft, it's like these are mini organs that you're transplanting. So he obviously has a good staff. He obviously has good hands himself. He has a really good track record as far as moving a lot of hair and that hair surviving. So he's good at what he does. But there is a long-term downside, potential downside to moving that much hair. And you have to be aware of it. If you're 30, how old are you now?
37.
Okay. So if you can deal with spending the money and the time and enjoying maybe a decade of that full-looking head of hair, but knowing that it may not last forever, would you be satisfied with that decision?
I don't think I would. I'm thinking long-term. I want to get it done, and, I don't want all the stuff to fall out if I'm paying that much for it, and then, it depends, right? If it's 30 years from now, I'll be fine with that. But if it's 10 years from now, gosh,
you shouldn't have a hair. You shouldn't have any hair transplant then. Even the most modest hair transplant, even if it's taken from the sweet spot, if you have a strip, or if it's just a 2,000 graft procedure taken from the sweet spot, that hair can miniaturize in 10 years. You just don't know. We don't know how your body's going to react. So when people tell you, and when you read or you see the ads that this is a permanent solution to hair loss, that's complete bullshit. It might be a permanent solution. It might not be permanent. That's what the ad should say. It's possible. Yeah. This is the only possible permanent solution that we have to date.
Yeah. Well, I've been researching stuff for about 15 years, and I grew out my hair was always have a shaved head, and I've got the little moat behind the front there, but it's still hanging on for dear life. But I grew it out for during Corona, just to see what I kind of had left, after having it shaved for a few years, and that I decided, well, I won't be growing my hair out again anymore.
Well, and you know what? A lot of people do that, and then they're like, all of a sudden, it's like that Seinfeld episode with this guy who's a swimmer who shaved his head for years, and then Elaine said, saw an old picture of him, a driver's license, said, you have beautiful hair. He tried to grow it out. He realized he was going bald, and he goes into a deep fucking depression, But he lived his entire, for the last decade with a shaved head. So there are plenty of guys who have contacted us over these last few months. They've grown their hair out during during lockdown, and now they're thinking about, they're online, they're spending a lot of time doing research, and they're like, wait a second, you mean I can actually get my hair back? Forget it, dude. If you lived with a shaved head and you're able to enjoy your life and move through life with a shaved head, hair transplants are not for you.
Okay, I guess I'll just keep my beard going as long as I can then. That way I'll have something.
Yeah, listen, I was talking about this on the broadcast. I have lost some ground over the years and recently. I'm noticing some slight telogen effluvium, just a little bit more shedding. I upped my dosage of finasteride. People look at me and they're like, Jesus, you've been doing this, you've been on this drug for almost 30 years. You seem to have a relatively decent head of hair. A lot of it's a sham, but I have saved a lot, but everything's on loan, man. So, and especially when it comes to hair transplant surgery, that is really, you're essentially biding time. Now, Joe is lucky. Joe's had a lot of great surgery, a lot of good repair work. He doesn't seem to be losing any ground. He actually has gained some ground. He's on medication. but he's also relatively young. He's only 50 years old. He could be a mess by the time he's 60.
Until next week. Yeah. No, it's... Well, some people say I keep getting hair transplants because I'm still losing my hair. No, it's not true. I'm just a junkie.
Yeah, he's a hair transplant junkie. So listen,
well,
dude.
You guys are like the trailblazers, so thank you for being mentors for us millions of guys out here.
Listen, man, I'm glad that we're here. And, yeah, I've been doing this for way too long, but I'll stick around for as long as I can.
Please do.
All right, man, you take care. Good luck.
All right, guys, take care.
Thanks for calling, Patrick.
888-659-3727. I have to figure out this Instagram thing because I put on live. I get like 3 people watching. Now I got nobody watching.
That's one more than the number of followers you have, so that's an accomplishment.
That's going to leave a fucking mark, dude. That's going to leave a fucking mark.
You know you have more than I do, so it's like, that's why it's funny.
That hurts.
And the timing, it was just...
659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hello, this is Clay. Can you hear me?
Clay, we can hear you. Where are you calling from, man?
Hello, Clay.
I'm calling from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Clay from Grand Rapids.
How's it going in Michigan?
I'm doing pretty good, man. It's getting to be the fall time, and it's kind of my favorite time of the year. How you guys doing?
You know what? I would say that I'm doing better than fair.
Good. That's good to hear, man. I'm not sure. You probably don't remember me calling. I called you. This is my 3rd time. I'm really a big fan of you guys, and I've been listening for a long time, but I called you about a year ago, it's actually been more than that, talked to you about doing a transplant in Indianapolis at Transitions. And you guys urged me to really consider not doing it and get on finasteride. And I took your guys' advice, and I can't thank you enough for giving me that good advice. So I did that, and I delayed the transplant, called it off, got my money back, and I got on the drug. So it's been January 1st, actually, it'll be 2 years since I've been on the drug. It's worked fantastic for me. No side effects.
Nice.
I've really retained any further, recession and things like that. I really didn't regrow much hair, but that's still a win in my book. I was able to halt my hair loss.
Dude, it's a total win. That's the whole point of the drug. I mean, listen, if you regrow anything from this medication, that is a plus. But a lot of guys who start young, like I did, I was 28, I think. Jesus. Long time ago. The whole key was I did notice some regrowth for sure. So I was a great responder. But the key was slowing the progression for a couple of decades. And people don't recognize the value of that when they're 25 or 26 because they want to get their adolescent hairline back. Well, eventually that adolescent hairline doesn't look so great. And you kind of grow into your hairline.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm still not happy with my hair. I have pretty long hair. It's really like I play in a band and I keep it real long. It's about halfway down my back, honestly, when it's pulled down and stuff. But I do a good job at concealing. It's really just mainly the temples, kind of getting to that classic M shape. I'm probably a solid 2 going into a 3. So I really conceal it quite well. I told a couple people about about how I'm self-conscious about my hair and this and that, and they're like baffled until I really show them, oh, okay, now I see you do have hair loss. So I do a good job at concealing it, but I really am still not happy with it, and I really, really want to get this back. So now that I've been on the drug for 2 years I'm going to be 29 this coming month, and I'm like, you know what, I think it's time I do something about this. I've seen the drug work for me, and I've really, did everything I can, essentially, that I'm comfortable with doing. So I decided to contact this place again that I initially contacted about doing a hair transplant, and I decided to pull the trigger on it. And I did a consultation with them again, virtually. They seemed to be, just as good as they were initially, and they really, weren't sour about the fact that I asked for a refund and everything. They understood, and obviously they want my money, so they're not going to be dicks to me. But
you'd be surprised, but okay.
Did you have the surgery, or you just had another consultation?
I'm going to next month. I'm signed up on the 21st of November. So I did the consultation again, and then I drove down to Indianapolis, which is about a 3.5-hour drive, and I visited the clinic, and I met everybody, and I really looked around, and, you know, it was a good place. It seemed to be good. It was the same salesman, of whatever you want to call it. It was the same guy that did the initial consultation, so I thought that was a good sign, being the same guy. I figured, you know, if they had high turnover, that might be a bad sign. And they really, they moved into a better facility. The place looked amazing. They gave me, you know, a tour, and, I mean, I was really impressed. But I still got that little bit of cold feet about this whole thing, and I wanted to call you guys and just kind of still get your opinion on everything. I don't want to back out again, but at the same time, I don't want to do something stupid. So,
all right. Well, then, if you don't want to do something stupid, I would suggest you get on the telephone and you ask for a refund.
Again.
Okay.
If you are able to hide your hair loss currently, if you're able to move, if people have to wonder what the fuck is going through this guy's mind, and you have to show them that you're balding, then you're probably not a candidate for a hair transplant.
Only because you've got so much, it's not enough to be an issue. And, you know, you got to look at what is your goal with a hair transplant? Is it to look like you have more hair? Because if you already look like you have more hair because of the way you style your hair, then you just gave yourself a hair transplant without having a hair transplant.
Don't you think I would love to have a little bit more hair, just so that I can comb my hair straight back, or I didn't have to worry about, you know, touching up my crown with makeup and putting a fucking ton of hairspray? Of course I would. I would love that. It would make my life so much easier. But I also know that there's a good possibility, especially if I would have done it younger, that I would have had a significant amount of shock loss, and I would have been continuing to have surgery to kind of keep up with that progression. You know, for me, if I decide to have a hair transplant when I'm 60 years old because I've exhausted all of my options, then I fucking won. Or maybe I won't get a hair transplant. Maybe I'll get a fucking wig. I don't know. Or maybe I'll shave my head, but it gives me the option to shave my head. If I would have had a hair transplant 10 years ago, that option is off the table.
Right. Well, I guess I'm so self-conscious and so tired of it, focusing on it so much, because if I had shorter hair, you know, a hairstyle like you, Joe, or you, Spencer, if I had hair like your guys', it would be super noticeable. It's really only able to be concealed because it's so long, and I really don't want to continue to have long hair forever into my 30s and 40s if I don't want to. It would look really noticeable if I had shorter hair.
Yeah.
And it's pretty bad. I mean, I sent in the pictures, and I mean, I'm like, wow, I do have a lot of hair loss. It's just because I pull it in a bun in a certain way when I have it pulled back. It just doesn't look like it, or I often wear hats and stuff or bandanas, and it just bugs the crap out of me. It's just really hard to deal with, like, you know, and I feel like this is my only real solution, and I really don't want to shave my head. I could not go on with a shaved head. I just can't see it.
Well, listen, I understand.
Hey,
I understand that.
There's nothing wrong with the Bret Michaels look, using the bandana.
Now, listen, I understand there are times, like I said, I'm going through a little bit more of a shed recently, and I'm just like, you know what, fuck it. I am 55 years old. I should just take a bic to this thing and just move on. And then I kind of like pull my hair back, and I'm like, you know, man, I look like I'd be working on the fucking railroads. You know, is that racist, Joe? But I would look like Kane from Kung Fu. It would not work out well for me. You know?
See, you just tied those together, because you could have said, you could have just left it at working on the railroad, and people wouldn't have no idea what you're talking about. But then you had to tie it in, didn't you?
So I, you know, but it's possible. Like, I asked people, okay, people in my life, women, and they all say, I think you'd look good with a shaved head. I don't believe that. I think that's bullshit. But what it would free me up, I'd be able to do if I did shave my head, is I would go to the anti-aging doctor. I would get on HGH. I'd get so jacked it would be insane. I'd pull a Joe Rogan, you know, because I'm getting older now. It's hard to keep my physique. So that would be my option. But I understand how you feel at your age, at any age. It sucks. But you have to understand the possible downside. Now, let me just get an idea of exactly where the hair loss is and what this particular clinic assessed for you.
Okay, so I don't have any crown loss at all. It's just all temple recession. Basically, they did that real, that microscope thing where they put it up to your head and all that good stuff. And they do multi-unit hair grafting there. So I was going to get a level 8 procedure, is what they told me, which is about 4,000 grafts.
All right, dude. First of all, you got to find. In my view, you got to just start to do more research. If you're going to go this, and they're telling you a level 8 procedure, if it's an odd way of approaching this technique and marketing the technique, if it's unique to the rest of the field, I always see that as a red flag. I don't know about you, Joe.
We're going to provide you with the level 8 super duper extra special VIP service. It just doesn't have a ring to it. Let me ask you this. So 4,000 grafts or 4,000 hairs?
4,000 grafts.
Okay, and this is doing an FUE procedure?
Yes.
Okay, and that's using a machine?
Correct. It's the ARTAS robot, or whatever they call it. Yeah.
All right, move on, dude.
Yeah, move on. There are very few people, and keep in mind, sight unseen, have no idea who this clinic is. So I'm not even going to go further down that route, but I will say that when it comes to the robot, there are very few people, in my opinion, that are proficient enough with it to in my observations, to have consistency with their results. And none of them will do 4,000 grafts using the robot because they feel like it's too much to do in one visit. So keep that in mind.
Right.
And just to let you know that I don't know what iteration of the ARTAS that they're using, but there's a lot of questions you could ask. How long does the setup? How long does the setup take? When you get there in the morning, how long does the setup take? If that machine is wound up and ready to go by the time you're sedated and put into that chair, then that is not a place you want to go to, because essentially what they do is they load those. They call them needles, but they load those punches ahead of time, and they're not. It's not being dictated by the type of hair you have or the size punch they think they would need in your particular case. What normally happens, especially clinics that are promoting large cases using this type of, or the robotic device, is in general, they will load it up with the largest punch possible to avoid transection. And they'll try to just get as many grafts as they can. When that happens, if they do use the largest punch possible and punch out 4,000 grafts or do 4,000 attempts, the back of your head will be ravaged. Absolutely ravaged. In order to do 4,000 grafts, you have to use a really small, delicate, or small-sized needle or punch to provide a donor region that looks acceptable. I've never known a robotic procedure, a fully robotic procedure, that can provide that for a patient. Now, there's a lot of guys who do hybrids. I know that Ken Anderson, for instance, in Atlanta, is really an expert. He uses the robot in a way that, only someone who understands hair transplant surgery and all the nuances of hair transplant surgery could use it. But he also uses other techniques along with the robot. And I highly doubt that he would provide a 4,000 graft procedure that's 100% robotic.
Okay, so basically you're saying there's a pretty good chance that I'm going to come out of this if I do it, and I'm going to have a negative result and not be happy. Right?
There's a very strong chance that if you have 4,000 grafts performed 100% robotically, that you're going to be fucked up, in my opinion.
Okay. So I guess my question is, I guess it doesn't really make sense, like a place that seems to be, at least in the public's eye, to be so reputable and have such a great facility and all this, why would they want to do this and take a risk on me if I'm likely to have a bad outcome and just rip them apart?
That's a great question, and especially in this day and age. When you think about, and people on Instagram, the one person on Instagram didn't hear that question, but if you think about how a lot of these companies have thrived and survived over the years, think about a company like Bosley Medical, for instance. There was a very, they've changed and they've evolved incredibly, but for years they were providing, at least according to the patients that went online or contacted us through the show, inferior hair transplant surgeries. Now, that's how they made their bones, but they had the best advertising. At least according to patients, and at least according to what I've known about the company at the beginning in the 70s and the 80s and in the early 90s, there were a lot of issues and a lot of unhappy people complaining. They've changed, but they still became the biggest hair transplant company ever. Why is that? Because 200,000 of us wake up every day realizing that we're losing our hair for the first time and we're looking for hope. And you said something really interesting. You met these people. They were very professional. They had a beautiful facility. They made you feel comfortable. That's all part of the sale, man. That's what they're good at. And, there's so much money to be made in this field that if they're able to handle, there's only going to be a certain number of people who complain about bad results. Then there's the psychology of those who are like, oh, I fucked up. I'm not going to say a word. And even if they have one or two bad complaints, there is an entire cottage industry out there that works for cosmetic surgeons who have complaints online.
It's called reputation management.
So
they literally manage your reputation online and find negative reviews, and they utilize tactics to bury those reviews onto like the third, fourth, or fifth page of Google, which no one goes to. Like statistically, most people don't even leave the first page when they do their search.
But even if you see complaints, you're going to say, okay, well, everyone has a complaint, and that's reasonable. But you just have to understand, and I'm not saying that this particular clinic is providing bad results. I have no clue. But statistically, and just based on all the information that we have, it's unlikely to get the best possible hair transplant result if you go 100% robotic with those many grafts, even in the best hands, in my view.
Okay.
Now, I will say that this last iteration of the robot, it's really come a long way. And just to be completely clear, I did consult for the company, Restoration Robotics, before it was, what's the word, Joe? Before it was acquired by this other company. And I did my best to try to provide them with all the information that they needed to help to improve the product. But the reality is there were limitations back then, and in my view, there are still limitations right now. The company that now sells the product will sell the robot, and they'll also provide a neograft in some cases as an adjunct to the robot so that people can go in there and kind of cherry pick by hand so that they don't have to depend on that one robotic device in their practice.
Interesting. Okay.
But I understand that you want to get help, but you really need, if you are a candidate for hair transplants, you got to do more research. This may be the company to go to. I don't know. But from what you're telling me, it doesn't sound like it's the best route.
Right. I'll tell you, the one of the biggest red flags for me, because I really was looking for red flags. I wasn't going there I'm getting a transplant. I don't care what anybody says. I'm just going to focus on this shiny, great facility and these nice people. I was really looking for bad things. And I'll tell you, the only thing really that was negative that I experienced was the fact that I didn't get a chance to meet the surgeon. I want to meet the surgeon, I didn't get it.
Because the surgeon is probably not going to be performing the surgery.
Okay, good point. Yeah, I didn't think of that. That's probably it then.
Or it might not even be the same surgeon that you'd meet that day that would actually be in the office on your surgery day. And what I mean by that is some companies, and I still don't know who this is, who you're choosing, but some companies, if they have multiple locations and multiple doctors, they have their doctors fly around to different locations. Like I know some
Okay.
chain clinics, and I'm not talking about Bosley. I think they have done this in the past, but talking about some other clinics where they would have multiple locations, say 10 locations, but they'd only have 4 doctors. And they would fly those doctors to the different locations where they had surgery scheduled for that week. So if there was a clinic in, I actually know one chain where they had a clinic in Bellevue, Washington, a suburb of Seattle, and they would fly a doctor in for a week because the consultant that worked out of that office, because the office was mainly a consultation office, he would work to book that week solid, so that when the doctor would come in for surgeries, he'd be busy the whole week. And then at the end of that week, the doctor hopped the plane and fly on to, either home for a few days or to the next location to do more surgeries. That's how it's done. It's still done that way with some companies. So that could be one reason why you never met the doctor. And, if you're going into a facility to have consultations, you should be able to meet the doctor. Now, there are situations where it can be, they could have a system set up to where it doesn't work like that because the doctor is busy doing surgery, and I understand that. But in those places, if the doctor's too busy doing surgery, then the patient needs to know that up front, and that if there's another level that they need to get to meet with the doctor, then they need to be aware of that before everything. And I understand and actually endorse those kinds of situations, because if you're the patient of the day, you don't want the doctor walking out every half hour, 45 minutes to go meet another patient. You want him to focus on you.
Right.
Right,
totally.
But when it comes to the robot, no, the doctor, no, you should have most likely been able to meet the doctor that day.
Yeah, most definitely. And, I didn't see any surgeries being done that day. I was able to tour the whole facility. It may have just been a day where they were done. It was pretty late in the day. But
so was there
solid. I mean,
was there a doctor on the premises that you're aware of?
No, there was not at the moment. It was interesting because, in my viewpoint, it seems like a lot of these places are owned by the surgeons. Is that true, or are they usually owned by a third party?
It depends. Some of them are owned by a third party, and some of them are owned by the surgeon.
Right. Okay.
Now,
because this is owned by a different person.
Now, the majority of clinics that are really really well respected are they're doctors' practices. They're their own practice. It's a private practice, and they focus on this form of cosmetic surgery. It's not a business person who's hiring doctors. Now, in some cases, and there's a good clinic in the UK that's owned by a business person that has good doctors. But in general, you kind of want the physician to have his name on the door.
Right.
So if it's called something hair clinic or hair institute without the doctor's name, you want to find out why that is and if it's owned by a doctor.
Right. So this is called We Grow Hair Indy, and the doctor's name is Dr. Weishi. I can't think of his first name off the top of my head. I know that sounds bad. I should really know it. But it is owned by a businessman. I don't know exactly why or how long he's owned the place.
First name Wooshi?
So are you talking about... So is this the original PAI?
Yeah, PAI Medical Group, and it's We Grow Hair Indy. That's the name of the place.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, dude, all I'm going to tell you is I know the guy who owns the place. Very nice guy. He's been in the business for a very long time. But
he's British, isn't he?
No, he's not British. Well, maybe the guy that you saw is British, but he's not British. He's
French Canadian.
He's a very nice guy. He's been in the industry for a long time. I knew him through the industry, also
he's Australian.
The
guy who owns the place now is Australian.
Through Cy Sperling as well. I mean, this guy may be a partial owner now. I don't know. But the original guy, his last name is Ramsey, I think. Or Rawlsley. Ramsey. Very nice guy. But you don't know who the physician is. Now, he's worked with some really good physicians in the past. I don't know who he's working with right now, or if, maybe he sold the joint. I have no idea. But that We Grow Hair PAI has been around forever. And there were times when people got great results from that company. There were times when people, at least online, you can see some pretty bad reviews from that company. That's just the way that it is. It really depends on the type of procedure that they're doing and the physicians and the team that are working for the group at that time. I am not a fan, dude. I'm going to tell you, and then we'll take some more calls. But if you are just considering going to a place where you haven't met the doctor and they're offering 4,000 robotic, 4,000 grafts through the ARTAS robot, it's time to move on.
Okay.
You may be a great candidate for a hair transplant. It may be life-changing for you, but you are not doing enough research.
Okay, I can definitely respect that. I think you're right. So,
all
right.
And I'm sorry that
Hopefully
and don't be stressed. Listen, they'll give you your money back. It's the way that it is, and just say that you want to do more research, whatever you want to say, but do your research. I mean, where are you located again?
I'm in Grand Rapids, Michigan. There's no good clinics around here. I mean, I know it's worth going a ways away, but
yeah, you're going to have to travel.
Yeah,
you're definitely going to have to travel, man. But if you're going to have this done, now you can still get fucked up even if you travel and you find somebody who's really good. There's still a possibility, but you're mitigating that possibility of being fucked up. If you're letting a group of technicians control a robot and just let that shit go on you, that's a bad idea. That's this will affect the rest of your life. And as uncomfortable as you feel about yourself right now, you're going to be devastated if it doesn't work out.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very scary to think about.
All right. So then don't think
You
about
think
it.
it's worse than an aging rocker with a bad hair transplant.
I know. I don't want to wear a wig, man. No way.
Well, then, if you're going to have robotic surgery of those many grafts, you completely eliminate your ability to ever wear your hair short or to shave your head.
Which is okay with me. I mean, I don't care about seeing the scar necessarily. I mean, I can keep it longer, but I still don't want an unnatural look.
It won't be a scar. It will be 4,000 punctate wounds, probably produced by a larger punch than necessary.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I did sign a contract, but hopefully it's okay to. I mean, I doubt they'll give me any shit about getting my money back, but
you never know.
I don't really know how that works.
But you know what? It would be the best money ever spent or ever lost.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, I mean, listen, and this is not to say this company as a whole has been around for years. They have produced some very good results. I've known a few doctors who worked for the company who were good hair transplant surgeons. I have no idea who this doctor is, and you're telling me that it's 100% robotic? Those are both bad signs.
Okay.
Now, if you're removing 1,200 grafts, and they said they were just going to use the robot and they were going to get it out of the sweet spot, and yet, they felt you were a candidate for this, and you were going to a doctor who really understood how to utilize the robot, then we'd be like, okay, it's just a tool.
Right.
But it doesn't sound like that's the case.
Right. Well, guys, I really appreciate you taking the time with me. It's amazing what you do. It really is, and I'm going to keep listening, and I'll call in again and eventually and give you guys an update.
I just hope you don't call and say that you had the surgery and everything went well, and then you call us a year later and say how fucked up you are.
Yeah.
By the way, before you go, let me interrupt and say one of our chat room members, Graeme, suggests that you tell them you have COVID. That'll get you out of it.
That'll just delay it.
Not if
if
just not if you could possibly die. Say, listen, I need this money for my mother's my mother's rent or something. I don't know.
That's a good point. Yeah, I could do something like that.
Look, I'm not here to take business away from anybody or to harm anybody's reputation. I have nothing bad to say about the clinic itself. Just from what you're describing, it doesn't sound like it's going to end well.
Okay. Now, one last thing. Let me quick ask. I'm so sorry to keep your time, but I want to quick ask you one more thing before I hang up. Is it counterintuitive to have long hair to do a surgery, or is it just mainly more work for the surgeon?
It's always more work for the surgeon to work with long hair. That's just logical, because if they have to constantly flip the hair out of the way, or even if it's pushed away with hair clips, the hair that they're working on, like if it's an FUE, of course they gotta maneuver the punch over the hair, so as not to cut it and transect it as they're going in. I mean, there are lots of things that they have to deal with if the hair is uncut. And that's why, in your case, why not consider FUT instead of FUE?
Okay, yeah, all right. That would be better then, huh?
Well, better is relative, but I was thinking about this. You're a rocker, you keep your hair longer. You're talking about cutting it shorter as you get older, but still, if you're not buzzing your head, or if you don't have plans on buzzing your head, then that is a viable option. It's still a phenomenal procedure. I've had many of them. And, the one thing you do have to be aware of is the potential for the donor scar to stretch. But like Spencer said, you mitigate that issue by finding a reputable clinic that has, a really good track record of consistency with FUT. And, I mean, look, FUE was created because of it exploded in popularity because people wanted the option of shaving their head. That was all over the forums and all the marketing back in the day, and the practitioners of FUE that got in earlier were pushing the idea that if you have a strip, you're going to have a really bad strip scar. It's going to, they showed all the worst cases out there. And while there is some truth to what can happen, in the hands of good clinics, that probability is greatly reduced. But again, with FUE, you can have enough scarring or donor depletion in one particular area to where you wish you had a bad strip scar. Because it's like, especially with people that have longer hair. One thing about having longer hair, you don't want it to have the volume and fullness of a dandelion. Like, you want it to have fullness and weight to it and heft, right? Because there's so much hair. But with FUE, you're removing each strand of hair on a 1-to-1 ratio. But when you're doing strip, you're removing the tissue that goes along with the hair, you're closing the wound, and your hair volume is imperceptibly different. Okay, so that's another thing to consider with FUT. Both procedures are awesome in the right hands, but you certainly do have a lot more research to do with regards to your own case. So good luck with it, and please keep us updated on how your deposit issue goes and where your research is taking you.
I absolutely will. Joe, Spencer, thank you guys. I appreciate it, man. Have a good weekend.
You got it, man. Good luck. Be careful, all right?
All right.
Take it easy.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Guys, the phone number is 888-659-3727. I know someone tried to leave a voicemail, I just found out, on the line. By the way, Monday morning, I will be getting a new Vonage box. I will be fixing this issue.
I'm sorry, you might want to repeat that again, because a what box?
Vonage.
Vonage, okay. I didn't hear two syllables in that, so it's like, what did he say?
Vonage.
Vonage.
That is the problem with why we don't get a busy signal. It doesn't flip over all the way to get the busy signal. It stops and for some reason goes to voicemail, or it doesn't go to voicemail, it goes to a queue that just kind of kicks you out of the queue. So I have to fix that for the conference, so getting my shit together. Guys, the phone number is 888-659-3727. That's 888-659-3727. We have some lines open if you want to give us a call. Otherwise, we're just going to call it a night. I mean, we started late.
We can do that.
But what do I care? What do I care? I mean, We got some content. We got some good calls. I'll give you guys about 3 minutes. That's 888-659-3727 toll-free number, and we have all lines open. What am I doing here? Where's the show? Trying to get to your chat.
What are you doing?
I'm being interrupted. Not interrupted. I'm being contacted, and I'm being I'm unable to multitask like I used to, I guess. What are you doing, Joe?
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. You can't multitask at all.
I was exploring the new dashboard that I have for our streaming broadcast here, and looking at some of the features, because I've had several people bitch and moan because we don't timestamp the video, and I responded to one of them saying, well, after being on the show for 2 hours, I don't want to sit down and watch it again for another 2 hours just to find the areas or the timestamp points. And I just found something in our new dashboard for the studio. I think I can add, it says add stream marker, but I'm not sure. That might be what I need. I can just click that and add a marker.
Do it.
Every time we get a different phone call. But I'm just trying to see. It's making me, okay, markers appear in the video editor after. Okay, so these are markers for me to add something in post. Okay, that might work. All right, so I got 2 in there. They'll be useless right now because we have no calls.
Yeah, all right, guys.
By the way...
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, by the way, people, we've got 19 likes on the video today. We did get a late start, but you don't need to punish us. Hit the like button. Obviously, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, my subscribers are climbing pretty fast. I'm actually going to hit 18,000 probably by end of next week. So if you haven't subscribed, help get that moving along and subscribe. And of course, click the bell to get notifications when we do go live. I was having some people saying that notifications weren't working for those that did subscribe, but maybe they didn't click the bell.
I don't fully understand.
Hit that like button.
You hear a guy like this guy from Michigan. He's Michigan, right?
Yeah.
Call in. And, there's so many guys like this.
Oh, no.
They take the time.
That's how places like he was going to stay in business.
Well,
they don't do the research.
Exactly. And, we're out there providing the truth. And I've learned this in my career, and I've talked about this a lot. But while I figure out a way, and I call it hustling truth, to earn a living by telling the truth, it's not fucking easy, because all the attention in general goes to the bullshit. What happens is, and I guess why we've grown and why the American Hair Loss Association became what it is and everything else, people get fucked up and then they find me over the years. Now they're finding us. So they will, in the world of social media, they will subscribe or they will follow on Instagram all of these fucking hair loss hacks or these people who are becoming influencers. And I use air quotes when I say that. But when you're thinking about having surgery, why on earth would anybody not want to listen to someone who's actually in the field, who has some actual credibility, as opposed to, and listen, I think it's great that we live, everything's democratic online now, so people have the opportunity to get eyeballs on whatever they do. And I think getting those eyeballs are important. I want people to find out as much as possible and learn as much as possible. But when they make decisions based on someone who's been in the trenches for 2 years or had a hair transplant 3 years ago and is now selling products or services, you got to really think, what is happening to this world? Are people that lazy that they don't want to really take the time to do research? And has society really evolved to the point where we just believe someone who has an Instagram account or a YouTube account when it comes to something that could alter our lives forever? I guess the answer is yes. That's what's happened.
Well, obviously, because people don't think about how this can alter their lives forever. All they think about is what they see in front of them, the short-term gain that they hope they'll achieve. And the way that surgery has been marketed, especially in the past several years, it's not even a commodity. It's just something you can do, right? I mean, we look at that bozo in Beverly Hills. It's that I did the video about Zach from the Try Guys. Doesn't even want to call it we don't call it a surgery around here. We call it a procedure. It's like,
I remember
when
before that place opened, the physician himself is a nice guy, and I spoke to him at a conference, and he was telling me what he's doing and what he wants to do, and wanted me to see if I wanted to get involved in some capacity. And I have to say, I believe that everyone is given the opportunity when they meet me to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And sadly, people are advised to do things that aren't necessarily the right thing. And you can make money on the short term doing that. But in the long term, most of the guys who are really making these mistakes or making these missteps, I have to tell you that there's a lot of guys out there who are still hustling hair in their 70s because they have to. Because they've dealt with lawsuits and all kinds of bullshit. And they lived on the short term, lived high on the hog off of the misery of a lot of people. But I would say that a lot of these guys who fucked up a lot of people, they're suffering now. It's very interesting to watch, and being in the industry for over 20 years, seeing these 65-year-old and 70-year-old guys stressfully still hustling hair. And if they would have done it right throughout the entire time, like some of the guys that we work with, it would be their choice to stay in this industry.
100%. I'm reading a comment by Mr. Rolandis. Great supporter of our channel, by the way. Thank you for your support, Mr. Rolandis. So many people, especially in Facebook groups, are just don't think about worst case scenario. They think there's no way to get bad results. Going with, he mentions a doctor that has 8 patients a day. My friend, I'm working on a project where I'm investigating a clinic that does 20 to 30 patients a day. What do you think of that? So
I can tell. Well, we have some phone calls, but I can tell you that if a clinic has the ability and has the physicians and has the team to do eight procedures a day, and it's all being done right with great doctors involved, and great, that's terrific. It's unusual, though.
Yeah,
it's unusual. I could see 2. 2 a day.
They're out there.
They're out there. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hello, Spence. Hello, Joe. It's Graeme from Melbourne, Australia. How you going?
Graeme, you heard the call that we needed calls, and you took the time to make that happen. Thank you so much. How are you, man?
Very well. We're in lockdown still here in Melbourne. Dan Andrews is keeping the ball and chain on us, but everything's good. Everything's good here.
Well, your lockdown is all of Victoria was really locked down, like to the point where you have a curfew, right?
Correct. Yeah, our curfew now is at 9 o'clock, and a lot of companies and a lot of workplaces cannot go to work. There's just hairdressers, coffee shops, restaurants. It's just basically impossible. So it's a real problem. And as you know, I work on a golf course, but we still have to maintain the golf course, yet no players can come and play. So it's a whole different 6 months it's been. Yeah, it's really strange.
I have to say that for you, for the job that you have, I mean, you're very lucky because the maintenance has to happen in order to keep that golf course working and maintained. They need you, so you are a necessary worker, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm very lucky in that sense. Like I still got work, but we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how many members we're going to lose. The long-term effects for all the sporting industries, like I know you play gridiron over there and things like that, but the AFL season here, it's all gone to another state so they can play because it's all business. And it's
of course
huge.
Well, we can't. Our guys,
damage.
we can't go to other states. I mean, so essentially, football's locked down. They're trying to play baseball. You know, there's a lot of issues, and the entire world. Los Angeles is not only is it burning physically, it has been just it is not a place that I recognize. I have to say, this is a very, very strange time to live, and I feel very fortunate. I'm able to do what I do. A lot of the physicians in the industry were in an incredible panic, but in the last 6 months, the number 3 fastest growing cosmetic surgery is hair transplant surgery. Number 1 being blepharoplasty, which is eye surgery, which is interesting, maybe because everyone's wearing masks now, and they notice their eyes are fucked up. But hair transplant surgery is on the rise. It's growing even during the pandemic, which is pretty fascinating.
So it probably says to everyone that everyone's online and looking at different things that they normally wouldn't do, and that's the problem.
Well, that and also, I mean, people have they feel it's a good time. They're not going to work, they're working remotely, so they can wear a hat, and they feel this is a good opportunity to recover. You know, these physicians' offices were able to reopen. Frankly, the safest place you're going to be is in a doctor's office at this point. So, you know, it's an interesting time. Let's put it that way. It's a frightening time. And our president just announced last night that he was diagnosed with COVID-19, and the First Lady.
Yeah, it's all over the news.
He's actually he just flown to Walter Reed Hospital today.
So who knows what the fuck is going to go on?
Yeah.
I mean, I may be moving by you, Graeme. Either Australia or maybe Israel. I'll see how Israel works out. Dude, I like the women. I also like Israeli women, by the way.
True?
Go ahead.
They're very attractive.
Yeah.
Is it true, like I think just in New York, there's been 23,000 deaths from COVID? Is that true?
There's been more than 23,000 deaths from COVID.
Yeah, more than that.
Oh, geez.
There's been, in New York, it's got to be 35,000 or more, 40,000. You can check it out. Check it out, Joe.
I am.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, I think one of the problems with COVID, obviously, it was, you know, it's easily transmissible. No one really understood it.
32,000 in New York State.
30, that's close. There's a lot of politics around the potential therapeutics. There are drugs out there that we know work. Listen, I'm in a message forum with about 1,000 physicians, and there is not one that I know of who would not prescribe hydroxychloroquine, Z-Pak, and zinc to one of their family members as soon as they came down with symptoms. And as a matter of fact, I know one who actually saved his father's life. And these are drugs that are being totally politicized. So there are treatments available, and people, you know, the world just didn't understand how to handle this virus, and that's the sad part of it. There's a lot of panic, and it's very real panic because people never saw anything spread this quickly. Like it's like tuberculosis, worse as far as how transmissible it is.
I could definitely say this in Melbourne, and of speaking to all my friends about it. They're making us wear masks, and I'm all for it. And I think at the start of COVID, there was a lot of controversy. Should you wear a mask? And it's not necessary. But if I ask all my friends how many people have had a cold or a flu this year, no one has.
Right.
And it's obviously working, this social distancing thing. And no one has had a flu. No one has had a cold. So I don't think it's a bad thing if you wear a mask to the end of the year, or even when you're out in the public next year, and have your freedom back. I think it's a pretty good.
It's no big. First of all, it's
you know?
no big deal. I understand why it's such a big deal. You know, I understand people want to have the right to choose, obviously, and I understand why it shouldn't be mandated. I understand that, but this should be something that's voluntary. We should all be willing to do this. And you know what? I was the guy when I went to New York in February, and this was mid-February, that was wearing not just an N95. I was wearing a full-on respirator on the fucking plane. Okay, you know what? You saw my respirator. And as insane as that sounds, I was the only smart one in the bunch, because as soon as I got back to L.A., all of a sudden, New York, people were fucking dropping dead.
Yep.
So I had my hand sanitizer. I had my fucking Sono wipes. I was wiping down everything. And I remember this lady sitting next to me, about my age, and she's like, wow, you're really prepared. She's like, are you really that worried about it? I said, I am. And I said, would you like a wipe? She goes, sure, thanks. And she wiped her shit down too. But I'm not sitting next to some stranger on a plane in a tube where we're breathing the same fucking air without a fucking HEPA filter on my fucking head. Sorry.
You couldn't pay me to fly even now. No thanks.
So here's the good news. Now I think, we understand more about the virus. Far less people are dying from it. I think there should be, eventually there's going to be herd immunity. Essentially all we're doing is we're preventing that from happening. But we needed to do that in order not to overrun the hospitals. So I think wearing a mask is important. And it sucks. Strip bars are closed. I got nothing to do. It's a joke, Graeme.
Yeah. Sorry. I missed that. My partner just walked in the door. I had to point. I'm on the phone.
I'm just fucking with you. But
she's a nurse, by the way. She's come back. Oh, don't worry. I'll listen when I watch the repeat.
So she's a nurse. So is she seeing a lot of COVID in the hospital?
She has done a lot of COVID, but she does a lot of selective surgery, which the selective surgery now has been toned down a lot. So she hasn't been getting as much work as she should have had. So, yeah, but she works night shift and that, and but it's all working out well.
All right. And how are you doing, man? You're lucky you got your job. How are you doing emotionally?
Emotionally, I'm fine. Like I'm very, very, very good. It was funny, not to turn this. I have suffered from depression, and I went to see my doctor, and he said, "How you going?" And he said to me that a lot of people that have had depression and conditions are maintaining a lot better than people who have never had depression, because this sort of situation with the COVID and people losing their job, they've never experienced that sort of thing happening. But I'm really good, really good.
I'll tell you, I was built for a fucking pandemic, dude. I am fucking, I've worked out of my home for my entire career. Talk about depression. Jesus, I've dealt with all kinds of shit. Real stuff, and also just stuff that was manifested when I was younger. So I understand all of that. And, so when people are talking about, working remotely and how the world is going to change, that's what we've been doing for our entire, you've been doing it remotely yourself, Joe, for what, 5 years, 6 years?
Yeah, almost 6, yeah.
Yeah.
5.5.
So we were built for this, man. But Graeme, you are, I appreciate your support of this broadcast, and in general, the fact that you reach out every once in a while. And, you're a guy who is, makes a lot of sense. And how old are you now, by the way?
I'm 47 now.
All right, so you're a guy that's,
okay.
Like you said, if I remember your story, you actually were kind of sold into a wig years ago.
Correct.
Yeah. And you didn't know what you were getting into.
No, I had no internet. I did not know. I was told it was undetectable, and you'll be able to swim, you'll be able to live your life. And I thought, how easy is this? And and I thought, it's not surgery, so nothing's going to happen. But it was the worst mistake I ever made, financially, definitely.
How much did it cost you?
Back then, it was around 1996 or somewhere around there, probably $2,500.
Jesus. Wow, they really took people back then, man.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. Yeah. You get better hair pieces today for $250.
I've seen them all online, and I've heard Mordy call up, and some of those hair systems, lace systems online that you do at home. They're unbelievable. You know, they're a pain in the ass because you have to do it, but they look brilliant, and you're not going to get harmed if you go and do something like that. So,
well, the whole point of it is it's inexpensive. You give it a shot. I will say that I would say Morty was right. When I went on that website that I directed him to, and we don't do business with this company, I noticed that the models that they have look like they're wearing hair. And the reason is these guys want to maintain this really super youthful appearance. But if Morty would take my advice and get something that is, you know, light to medium light density, where you actually see through it, and you get it cut in right with a recessed hairline, he would be fine and he would look good. But I understand, you know, he's still out there having consultations and considering hair transplant surgery. And I'm glad that he went to see Dr. Dorin, who turned them away. But Morty is not a candidate for hair transplant surgery.
Yeah, Morty, definitely take Spencer's advice and get a light density hair system if you're going to do it. The problem is when I went to the hair studio and they put this thing on my head, like I was 21, and it looked ridiculous. It was super thick. Yeah. It did not look anything like my hair, and that's why I didn't like it from the start. Before I even got out of the chair, I said, it's too thick. You've got to thin it out. And they said, oh, no, we won't thin it out. But
they try to convince you, like, wait, what are you talking about? And they bring in people. Doesn't he look great? Look how handsome Graeme looks.
They got the mirror going right there. See, it doesn't look great. You know?
Doesn't he look terrific? And you're sitting there like, well, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm just not used to having this much hair. And then you walk out and everyone's like, nice wig, dude.
Yeah.
Correct.
Nice hat. Or nice cat.
I see there's nothing, you know, I wish it was easier for guys to wear hair. And I try to let them know that it can be, but they just have to be prepared to out themselves. Like my friend Kent Emmons. That's it. People were like, wow, you look great. And he's like, it's a rug. And everyone would just say, well, whatever you did, man. And it didn't even compute that he was wearing hair because he just looked so good. And he just felt free. So most people aren't like that. The other guy from Australia that called in, what's his name? He called in a couple of weeks. Adrian.
Was it George?
Adrian.
Yeah,
he was a great caller. And that was a powerful call. Because that was a guy who dealt with it when hair pieces didn't look great, but he had curly hair. But he was open about it. He had a hair party when he got his hair, and he lived his life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way to do it, man. Fuck what people think. We have one life. That's it.
That's right.
What I called up about is, as you know, I was on finasteride early on in my time, but I suffered side effects from it. So I was on it for about 6 years, and then I decided, look, I've got to get off this, and I decided to get off it, and eventually everything turned back to normal, and I was good as gold. But I decided to go back on finasteride just recently to see what would happen. I thought I had nothing to lose. I thought it was bugging me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically went on. I've got 1 milligram tablet, and I'm cutting it into 4, and I'm only taking it twice a week, and I've had no side effects at all, and I've already can notice the difference in my hair and the growth already.
That's great. Listen, I just upped my dosage, and I'm gonna be shortening the time that I take it. Right now, I'm taking it. I was taking it once a week. I'm taking a 5 milligram dose every 5 days now. Starting next week, I'm going to shorten it to every 4 days. You know, the finasteride has a relatively short half-life. They say it's out of your body within about 48 hours, and that it peaks at around 24 hours. But for me, by keeping my DHT at a baseline, relatively low, loading up my body for years and then doing intermittent therapy, it kept my DHT at levels where I was not really progressing, or was progressing slowly. But like I said, I think things are changing now, so I'm going to shorten that window and kind of let you guys know how I do. But as far as adding more into my body, I've had no adverse side effects. As a matter of fact, I feel fucking great, to tell you the truth. It may be helping me out a little bit.
Yeah, I thought for myself, I thought let's just see what happens. You know, I'm not going to do any harm to myself or anything like that, and let's just see what happens. See if I can improve my hair slightly or hold ground or whatever. But another thing I haven't heard you talk much about. It's funny, we all talk about, you know, if you think you get the side effects, you will get the side effects. But before I even started the medication, I was diagnosed with depression, but a lot later in life, like probably 10 years after that. And I was kind of thinking to myself, was it the depression that I had that I felt my libido was down and I didn't feel as well? Because since I've been on the antidepressant, for me anyway, I'm not telling anyone what medication to use, but it was a life changer and it turned me around and made me feel bad. It made me feel great. So I was wondering if it was actual depression more than the finasteride, which was I had in my head from the start that was causing the side effects.
It might have been both, or it might have just been depression. You know, we don't know. You know, our brain is what makes our libido and our sexual function. That's it. You know, it signals from our brain. You know, if our adrenaline increases, like young guys who suffer from performance anxiety, for instance, and they all of a sudden they're dealing with that in their brain that they can't get it up. It's that initial adrenaline that fucked them up, and then they start to get that in their mind. And then the guys who were taking finasteride, that same adrenaline, just even the slightest spike of thought of that it's not going to happen will increase adrenaline, and you'll have no erection. Just the way that it is. Mm-hmm. Depression, you are excreting other hormones like cortisol, you know, and adrenaline. So you're not thinking about sex. You're too fucking down. That's just the way that it is. Mm. You know, so listen, when people talk about adverse side effects in finasteride, I certainly don't deny that it's a real possibility. But just based on my years of experience and seeing how things have progressed in the online world as far as what people are writing about finasteride and how they're reacting to finasteride, it wasn't until about 2005 that the hysteria really started to kick in. So from the time that I wrote The Bald Truth until 2005, there were very rare incidents of people calling the program saying they've had adverse side effects. And this was at a time when my show was actually big. It was like on the real radio. We were national. We were huge in New York and here in Los Angeles. I mean, there are celebrities that, when I moved to Los Angeles, let's put it this way, I moved to Los Angeles, I went to the BMW dealership. The fucking salesman knew who I was. When I rented my first apartment in Los Angeles, the fucking realtor guy knew who I was. I wasn't on television, I was on radio. But I was on the biggest radio station in Los Angeles, 97.1. So we had literally hundreds of thousands of listeners. And for years, no one called in with any long-term adverse side effects from finasteride. A couple of guys called in and said that they had adverse side effects. We told them to talk to their doctor about lowering the dosage. They did, and most of them recovered fully, or they stopped and they recovered fully. But all of a sudden, in 2005, it was on one website, and then that website grew. It became this mass hysteria. So I don't know. And there's been no causal study, no actual double-blind placebo study that can show a causal effect of long-term adverse side effects in finasteride. So what do you say to that, Joe?
None.
None what?
No studies.
Yeah. I'm saying, what do you say? What do you say to somebody when they're saying, "Oh, you're denying the fact that this is happening"? I'm not denying anything. I believe it's happening to people. We just didn't know how it all of a sudden came out of the blue and why it's happening.
No, it's obviously happening, but like Spencer said, it's like, you know, we didn't even start hearing about this till 2005. I think it was actually 2006, when the first guy that decided to talk about this was really vocal about it. And then once that guy did his thing, floodgates opened. Suddenly everyone was having problems.
It actually started on an RX review site. And it was one guy that turned into 2 or 3 guys. And I don't know if there were really 2 or 3 guys, but all of a sudden, and you could see the chronology of it. It was like nothing, great, no side effects, this and that. It was like in the physician's desk reference, it was listed as one of the drugs with the least known side effects in history.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, it just rolled out of control. And everyone thinks it's poison. And what I find interesting is you're not getting the same type of complaints about Keeps, Hims, and Roman because people don't even fucking know they're taking Propecia.
Yeah.
So, listen, Graeme, we're going to take one last call before we go. We started the show late, but I always appreciate your time, and I'm glad that you're working through your depression. Look, I lived, my dad had post.
My depression's fine. Like it really it's no issue. I know what to expect, and I live life every day awesome. So it's under control, and it's nothing for me to worry about. Because I know what it is. I deal with it.
Well, listen, I'm an open book. I've dealt with it. I deal with it myself to a certain degree, and I dealt with it in a much. It was when I was younger. It was much more difficult for me. Listen, my grandfather committed suicide. My father was a World War II veteran with post-traumatic stress. So I was kind of brought up around it, and had a difficult life myself. So I totally understand it. And the thing is, it's about getting through it. And you sound like a really together guy. You always have. So.
Yeah, thank you very much. If for me, I know you've got to take another caller. Antidepressants did work, and it really changed my life and brought me back to feeling how I should every day. So I have got not a negative thing to say, and it took me a long time.
I haven't been on an antidepressant for about 30 years, but there was a time when I tried every antidepressant known to man when I was just going through the initial throes of my hair loss. And I went from tricyclic antidepressants to the serotonin uptake inhibitors that were new at the time. And I took drugs that actually did make me impotent. I was on a tricyclic antidepressant. I called my shrink. I'm like, I'm dead down there. He's like, get off the drug. And that was it. And then I was like on the one drug that did help me was a drug called Pepfactor, which I know there's several iterations now. But I've been very fortunate that I haven't had to take anything for about 30 years. But they can't help, for sure.
Yeah.
So that's my story.
Yeah. Now, I'll let you take other calls. We could talk all day about this. But, thank you very much. And everyone out there, listen to these guys because they know what they're talking about.
Okay, man. Listen, I appreciate that. You take care.
Thanks for the support, Graeme.
All right.
Yeah, we appreciate the support, Graeme.
Take care, Joe. Take care, Spence.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, buddy.
We're going to take this last call you've been holding on, then we're going to call it a day. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hi, hello.
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 Hey, how's it going, Joe and Spencer?
Pretty good. Who's this?
This is Johnny from Palm Springs.
Johnny from Palm Springs. How's Palm
Johnny
Springs,
from
man?
Palm Springs.
How's Palm Springs now? That may be a place that I can hang out for a while.
Well, a lot of people have been making it their destination, but there has been the fires, but it seems like everything's kind of dying down, so that's what was good.
Well, all right, good. So how are you doing?
I'm all right. I can't complain. I'm blessed.
Good. Okay. So then why are you calling the Bald Show?
Well, I've been listening for about 2 years. I've probably been losing my hair since, 23, 24.
Hold on for 1 second. Joe, do me a favor. Turn down your headset a little bit. I hear it bleeding through. I don't know if it's your headset or mine. I've been hearing it bleeding through the whole show.
How's that?
I think it's better.
Through the whole show?
Yeah, but I don't know if it's...
And you're just now saying something?
Yeah.
That's good.
I think it's good now. Go ahead, caller. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem, no problem. Yeah, so I'm 32 now. I took, not Rogaine, but the Costco brand for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. And then I did a couple of consultations with some hair HT guys from, I did Hassan and Wong, and I did, the guy from North Carolina, I'm trying to remember his name. Cooley?
Jerry Cooley.
His name? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so, and actually, I've emailed with you a couple times, Joe. And so,
oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, and so I've been wondering, I'm kind of almost ready to pull the trigger, but I know you guys say, hey, why don't you call in before you do anything crazy? Well, I can't do anything because I can't cross the border, so I'm here now, and I said, well, you guys need a caller, so why don't I call?
Well, we appreciate that. So you're asking Joe whether or not you should pull the trigger.
Sure.
No. How's that?
I didn't hear what you said.
I said no.
Oh,
you shouldn't
don't
pull the trigger.
Well,
no.
See, what I'm doing is I'm sporting a strategic comb over, and I am just getting sick and tired of it. My brother,
welcome to the club, my man.
Welcome to the club. Yeah. Are you turning into the lead singer of Flock of Seagulls when a breeze comes along?
Oh yeah, I have to duck for cover. Come on now.
Dude, I've been dealing with that for 30 years, and there's
been there.
In brief, I remember talking about the radio. I had a producer, Dean J. D'Amelio, and we were walking on Sunset. We went to this pizza place, and it was a crazy windy day. And I'm just like looking around like, oh shit, man, this is bad. So I turn around and I make believe I'm looking at some construction site. And he to this day, he doesn't let me live that down because he knew exactly what I was doing. But yeah, I've lived my life like that for a very, very, very long time.
So what do you do now? You wear a hat on a windy day?
No, I'm such an open book now. It's just like, whatever, you know what? If I know it's going to be a windy day, well, I will wear a hat. But if I happen to have to go out on a windy night, I will have a little hairspray and a comb in the car. Just in case. Just in case.
I used to keep a carry a travel size hairspray in my center console of my whatever truck I was driving or rig. I don't do that anymore. I'm happy to say.
Yeah, well, and anyone that I'm out with now, they know my whole story. It's just like, it is what it is. I'm 55 years old. If I can't have a semi-comb over at this point in my life, then what's the point of living?
All right.
So tell us a little bit about your backstory. Like, how old are you? Are you taking medication? If so, how long, and what's it done for you? And what kind of loss are you dealing with to where you got a strategic comb over?
Okay, so 32. I've been taking finasteride for probably a year and a half now. And gosh, I wish somebody would have told me about it earlier. I was scared about it because there was all these, like you said, these stupid stories about stuff that probably will never happen. Well, I got, like Spencer was talking about, I got him for a little bit. I did experience a little bit, but I didn't get any information of, hey, you can kind of change it up. Take it every other day, or go ahead and do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If I would have known that, I probably would have still had my hair to this day. I have no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And so,
okay.
What was the other question? Sorry.
Well, okay, so you just confirmed you've been on medication. You've been taking it for a year and a half. So what has been the outcome? So no side effects, I can assume. Did it stop your hair loss, or did it start to thicken things up a bit as well?
I think it stopped everything. It kept it the way it is. I'm pretty much a 5A at this point. I got a so a little bit of hair in the front, but definitely not anything in the back. And so that's what I'm working with. And
hang on. So a 5A, your crown is still intact or mostly intact. So a Norwood 5, you got a bridge across the vertex, the highest point of your scalp, and then you're bald in the crown and bald up front. So which is it?
Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm mistaken on that. So I have a little up in the front, a little in the vertex, none in the back.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like you're probably some sort of, a 4 or a 5, maybe with, is it completely gone on top or is it diffused?
Sure. I think you just, first of all, you just gave him a Norwood complex because you fucked up the Norwood scale.
Hey, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, the truth hurts.
No problem.
Caller, go ahead.
So, so as far as the top, what's it look like?
Diffused.
Diffused. Okay. All right. So, did the medication? You said it did improve things, or just held it steady?
Just held it steady. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And what I was going to say, my brother, who is just he's probably a Norwood 6. I see we're kind of very similar in facial. And I see the way he shaves his head. I just don't like the look. I really don't like it.
Yeah, okay. I got to tell you that I am not looking forward to that possibility. You know, I've been thinking about it more and more. I don't know if I'm ever going to do it, to be honest with you. But I do fantasize about that option. Like, God damn it, it would be so much easier just to fucking do it, man. Like, I'm like, all right, what do I do? Maybe I'll get some Latisse. I'll grow my eyebrows out like Zarev and, get that shit going and just get really super jacked. Like, I have the base to do that, but I don't have the hormones at this point. So I'd have to inject those.
You can go buy them.
I could buy them. So
you can buy those hormones, baby.
I can definitely I wouldn't be like The Rock, but I could definitely be like a pro wrestler if I took some drugs and worked out for about 6 months. So I can go that route, and I have like a tanning bed in the studio. I just go for it. But that would be the only way that I'd be able to do it.
If you shave your head, I don't want you to go buy the hormones. I want you to go get a silken robe and walk around in sandals. That's what I want to see you do. And then come on air so we can see if you actually do look like Kwai Chang Caine.
I would.
From Kung Fu.
I would.
That would be gold. Because that would be that would be great source material for at least 100 more thumbnails.
I mean, you can kind of see I have where the hairline is, so it's high, so you can kind of see the differential. And I have my head's not too round, so it wouldn't be that much different. But it would just be fucked up to me, man. Just couldn't deal with it. Like, I've seen you with a shaved head, and you look fine. That's the problem. Like, you didn't even need to get a hair transplant ever.
Here's the thing: when I on this last round, last spring, I was still shaving my head, and or maybe it was during the winter, but I was still shaving my head, and I lost some weight, and I was looking at a picture that my wife took. We were out at a restaurant.
You look young.
If you remember what that's like. No, I didn't. I didn't look young. I looked old.
Really?
I looked like I looked like either I was an old man or a baby chicken. I couldn't. It's like I just had a few hairs on top.
Yeah.
That's all the picture caught, or the camera caught, and I was really thin, and it just not a good look at that time. Usually it's fine when I got a little bit more.
It may have just been probably just the image as well, just the picture, because pictures can fuck you up. I mean, you see some still shots of me online, just like, what the fuck,
just look like a baby bird.
Yeah.
It's just like, what the fuck is that?
But
anyway, sorry, caller.
Yeah.
Sorry for the distraction of us. So all right. So what were the options presented to you? Did you go into these consultations saying, I want FUE and I won't take anything less, or did you say, I'll leave it to you guys? What do you think? How many grafts, and what's the game plan?
No, from my research, and I say mine, I mean, I know there's probably better out there, but I've seen better with anything above 5. I more than likely should get FUT, and that's what the route I've expressed.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
from your what you told me, which I thought was great, was why don't you do? Because they said, hey, you should probably do about 5,000 to 6,000 grafts, and maybe you should split it up into 2 sessions, which I think is a great idea, because in case something happens.
I said that? Yeah.
What was that?
I told you to maybe consider breaking it up into 2 sessions.
Yes. And now
Yeah,
after
okay.
seeing it, going, oh, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant.
And so, what was the like? You were recommended 5,000 to 6,000, but what was the what'd you do after that? Did you say, well, how about if we just split it up into 2 sessions? Is that possible, or did you even go down that route yet?
I said, let's do 2
And what was it?
sessions. That was kind of frowned upon, but I said, hey, you know what? I got time. Let's, I don't want to rush this. When I spoke with Dr. Coley's nurse, she said, oh, you only need about 3,500, but I'm going, you know what? I'm not sure about that. Usually people my loss probably need a little bit more. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to do a consultation over a picture. And I know Spencer had mentioned a camera of some sort that you could use to maybe do a Skype consultation.
I mean, you can get a inexpensive digital microscope where you could essentially put in your scalp, and they can check just like they would with a densitometer for miniaturization, and they would ask you to put it on specific parts of your scalp and take an image. And this way you can get an assessment of where you're miniaturizing the most, and if your donor is miniaturizing, and it kind of gives people the ability to, like if you're building a deck, you want to know how much wood you have to work with. It's hard to tell just from an online consultation.
Well, and that's the other thing is that if I'm not a candidate, just go ahead and tell me now. Now I can just go on with my life.
Well, if you can just go on with your life, then you may not be a candidate anyway. If you actually have the ability to go on with your life and be happy, then don't have surgery.
Well, I mean, I guess what it is kind of like a cherry on top. I don't know. I guess that's...
Yeah, I can get a dick enlargement too. That would be fun. But it could fuck me up.
That'd be a cherry.
That'd be a cherry, but it'd fuck me up for the rest of my life.
I don't want to do that.
You weren't expecting that one, were you?
No, I was not.
But to me, it's like, if it's not necessary to have surgery, then you don't have surgery. That's how I feel about it.
And as far as assessments go, there was someone else in the chat room actually asking about assessments, and he said, "Can doctors tell how many grafts they can get just by looking at photos?" And I said, "Well, it depends on the photos." And then he responded. Actually, it's kind of interesting. I don't think it was you, caller, that was talking about this, was it?
I was talking. I did say I don't know how you can come up with a number with just looking at a picture. I'm not sure if that's really a representation.
He said, "How could you say graft count could be off if you're recommending these doctors? Is it just a stroke of luck now?" So here's the thing. It's not okay. So it's actually 2 different issues, but as they tie together, how can I recommend these doctors if you're basically saying if it's a crapshoot? Well, I don't care how much detail you give the doctor, even if your ass is sitting in their office. If the doctor is giving you an assessment, it's an assessment, meaning this is what they think can be done. In a lot of circles, they call it an estimate. It's a graft estimate. And estimates, being what they are by definition, is an understanding of what they think they can get. But no one knows. No one knows until they actually get in there and they start doing the surgery. When you're dealing with FUT surgery, you got variables that you just can't tell until the skin is cut. So, if you're going for, say the clinic says 5,000 to 6,000 grafts, and we'll do it all in one strip from an FUT procedure, they actually don't know if they can get that. Because if you show up and your scalp is too tight, then yeah, you're stuck at 3,500 grafts or maybe even 3,000 grafts. In some cases, I've seen where an estimate for 5,000 grafts was thrown out and they could only get 2,000. And they don't know until that's actually started. So then once the final graft count's done, and it's like 2,000 grafts, like 2,300 grafts or something, and it's a tight closure, guess who's pissed about their future prospects for the second surgery for the area that they couldn't cover? You, the patient.
Right.
This is a reality. Like there are no guarantees about the outcome, so flush that down the toilet. There's no guarantees about the assessment for the surgery itself, like how many grafts you can get. Like it's all a crapshoot from beginning to end. Once you walk in that door, you don't even know if a meteor is going to hit the place or a gas line is going to explode. It's like that's what life is about, and no one on this planet can give you an absolute guarantee and have it mean something in anything.
Right.
Except that one day you're going to die. That's all we can guarantee, right?
I love when companies
And
give
how
you a
you get there, that's up to
when
you.
companies give you a lifetime guarantee on their product. Whose lifetime? The lifetime of your company? My lifetime? What the fuck is a lifetime guarantee? You got to hope that if the thing breaks, that the company's still in business. So there really are no. Anytime there's a guarantee, you're usually getting a guaranteed piece of shit. Now they should guarantee. I think any physician should guarantee that they're going to do the best possible job for you, and they're going to guarantee that they are doing everything possible to ensure that you are a safe candidate, and all of the things that any physician should do. But they can't guarantee shit.
And I'm going to give you an example, a personal example that I've been through recently when it comes to guarantees. So about 14 years ago, give or take, I had eye surgery. I had PRK instead of LASIK. I did my research on this. PRK is better than LASIK because they don't actually cut the eye. It's all surface work, and then they shoot the laser, and it takes about 2 weeks to recover, as opposed to 24 hours. I took the long road because it's a better surgery. I was willing to go through it. Second best decision I ever made. Almost rivals the best decision I ever made, which was
getting married,
having a hair transplant. Yeah, I see. I knew you were going to do. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I know you too well. So, one of the things that that the doctor's clinic says is, not that we guarantee the outcome, but we're so good at this, we'll give you free touch-ups if there's something that develops down the road. So here we are. I'm 50 years old now, and I love having 20/20 vision. I still have 20/20 vision. I just had it tested again last week for the third time in 3 months because I was going in to have them check my eyes because over the past 5-6 years, I've developed a need for these. If you can't see what I'm doing, I'm holding reading glasses. I can still see a fly on the wall and what it's reading, but I can't read myself without the use of glasses. And so I went in, and I didn't even mention the guarantee. I hate using that word, but the promise that they made to me. I didn't even mention that. I went through all the tests, and it was explained to me that yeah, they be fine doing a touch up, but I would have to agree on a compromise. I'm like, what's that? And the doctor said, it wasn't even the doctor that I was talking to at this point. It was his assistant. And she said, well, here's the thing. You still have 20/20 vision. It's just the lens inside your eye is, because you're getting older, it's not flexing as much. And so we could do a procedure, and it would help, but you would lose your your distance vision. You become more nearsighted. And so you have to decide, like, we'll be happy to do it for you. Some people don't want to. So here's some contact lenses. Just wear them in your right eye and see if you like it. If you can handle being able to read with one eye and see long distance with your other eye, then sure, we'll do another procedure. Like, you got great corneas, it can handle it. You can handle it many times. So you got to decide that. So the promise was obviously valid. Like, they're like, yeah, we'll keep touching it up. It's not because of a failure, but another issue popped up that they didn't tell me about. But I mean, it's a natural thing with age. Like, your vision gets worse. But I wasn't considering it.
Wait a second.
Being 50 years old, I wasn't thinking about my vision maybe being like the issue being deeper, like the lens and not the cornea. Right? So
right.
So that's just how life works. Like, for the past 2 weeks, I've been walking around with one contact lens in my right eye, and it's a mixed bag for me. But they told me we can overcorrect for one eye if you want. And at this point, I'm like, no, I'll just stick with the glasses. And that's what life gave me, right? So that's the same thing with hair transplant.
So the moral of the story is,
you don't know what the fuck's going to happen, and no one can make promises that will apply to you 3, 4, 5 years down the road, or 10 years, whatever.
Now, when I first got into this, when I originally got in and I was doing my research for my book, I was going to write a really scathing, derogatory chapter about hair transplant surgery. And then I met Dr. Robert Bernstein, who was gracious enough not only to take my call, but to bring me into his office to show me that hair transplant surgery can actually be a viable option. Because back in 1996, when I was doing my research, it really wasn't when I was going into these other people's offices. So, my point is, I have gone on the air and have talked about hair transplant surgeons and have talked about physicians who are doing great surgery for over 20 years. But I always have it in the back of my mind that people can get fucked up. So I've always provided that caveat. I've always said, you could always get fucked up no matter how great the doctor is. That's why I always hated the idea of people saying, oh, you're recommending doctors. I don't recommend shit. What I do is I provide a safer place for people to do their research and all the information they need to make a fully informed decision. That's it. That's what I do, because these guys are going to go out and have surgery anyway. They might as well have a fucking fighting chance.
Right. Well, I believe in what you guys do.
Well, I appreciate that, man. And that was a very, very long explanation for this poor guy who's been on the phone for a long time. But the key is, don't jump into anything, dude. If you can live your life without it, don't have it done. Every practice, for the most part, is going to make a slightly different assessment of your situation. There are physicians and practices that are used to doing larger sessions, and they feel comfortable. They have the infrastructure and they have the ability to make that happen consistently on a regular basis. So they'll make that recommendation. And then there are those who think that all you're going to need, because this is what they do in their practice, is 2,500 or 3,500 grafts. And in their mind, they're providing you with the best information for your situation.
Not to mention, when you get the ratio the differences of the estimates, and one is supremely larger than the other. It doesn't hurt to ask what the ratio of singles and doubles are in their average case, as far as, if it's a 4,000 graft case and someone else is saying 2,000 grafts, you can say, well, roughly how many hairs are going to be in each graft? Like, do you have a lot of doubles? Do you have a lot of singles? How many triples and quads do you usually get? These are the questions that if they're confident in their assessments and they've been doing this a while, and you'll probably be talking to a consultant, they'll be able to tell you. They'll be able to tell you what the ratio is, is on average for their patients. And you can take that into consideration, because sometimes it's about the amount of hair that's moved instead of the amount of grafts. Just keep that in mind.
Okay.
All right, man. Well, listen, thank you for calling. I wish you the best of luck. Don't jump into anything. I know you can't now anyway because of the pandemic. But, take your time. You're already what? How old are you now? You said you're
32.
Oh, you're 32. Okay. Well, you're young. Fucking got your whole life ahead of you, man. I'm going down the other side of the hill already.
Well, I'll tell you what. I will give you guys a call when this whole thing kind of hopefully moves on, and then maybe I can get some further information, and then I'll run it by you guys. How about that?
Yeah, do that, man.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, you take care.
I appreciate what you guys do, and have a good one.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
All right. Thanks, man. Bye-bye.
All right, let me turn off the phones. Jesus, we really stayed late.
I think we're about to have someone from the UK call. Wanna take one more?
Okay. I'm plugging the phones back in, guys. Let's see.
Damn boy, damn. In the UK.
I'm
You've
starving,
got 30
man.
seconds.
I'm starving. I'm going to order some cannolis.
Hey.
Let's see what this is.
Cannolis.
I've been addicted to this place that has the best cannolis. They're mini cannolis, too. I'll eat like 6 of them.
Oh, God.
I don't drink anymore.
Well, there you go.
Hey, you're on the air.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Who's this?
Yes.
Brilliant. So, I am calling from Ireland.
Hey, we're in Ireland.
Hey.
Dublin.
Dublin.
And we have just gone into another lockdown.
You're kidding me.
I know. Now, it's partial, so it's restaurants are still open and cafes, but you can only eat outside.
And what about, can you get a drink outside?
You can. So naturally, the streets are crowded with drunks.
I miss drinking.
But I'm just calling today because I've been following the show now for a few years, and I'm a 27-year-old. I've been on finasteride since 21.
All right.
It works great, but I started to lose efficacy over time. Now, I work as a chemist, and I've always been a bit concerned that cutting the tablet into quarters is going to affect its rate of dissolution, and the efficacy would be reduced, because when we're in the lab, if a film-coated tablet is cut or the 360-degree film is lost, you don't test it because the dissolution occurs early and the active can't reach the target zone.
Interesting.
So I was wondering, would it make more sense to take the 5 mg once a week because it's a full coating?
Well, I am not a chemist, and I'm not a physician, but I will tell you that I've always kind of felt that cutting the tablets in quarters could possibly, once air gets to it, could possibly affect the efficacy of the drug. If something is coated the way that Proscar is coated, there's several reasons for that. And you're a chemist and you know what those reasons are, I guess. But so...
Well, my biggest concern is that as soon as it hits the stomach, it's going to be partially denatured by the lower pH. And so the active is going to be reduced.
Interesting. I mean, I know they coat finasteride for a couple of reasons. One is, they're concerned about, or the way they coat it, they're concerned about women touching it who may be pregnant.
Yeah.
But I also know guys who have been cutting tablets in quarters for many, many years, and they've been doing great. And that includes Joe.
I was under the impression that coating was just so it's easier to swallow.
It's pH sensitive, so there's certain pH in the body. The intestine is obviously different to the stomach, and the intestine is where the majority of absorption takes place. So it'll have to bypass the stomach in order to get to the target region, and then it gets metabolized.
But is the coating strong enough to withstand that kind of acidic properties or levels?
For the stomach, it would be pH sensitive, yeah.
So that's interesting. So if you open up capsules, and I'm going to ask you a chemist question. If you open up capsules, say you're using, like I take caffeine. Instead of drinking too much coffee, I'll take a little caffeine capsule in the morning. What I like to do, instead of taking it, because I intermittent fast, instead of taking it, it has a gelatin capsule. I open the capsule, I put in a little water, and I drink the water. I feel the effects. You know, definitely. Now, do you think, and I guess it's a different type of coating, but do you think it would make a difference if I were to just ingest it with the vegetable coating?
I would 100% take it with the coating that it comes with, because whilst when you open the coating out, it will denature some of that active, but not all of it. It won't all be destroyed, because you find it's quite granular anyway, so that physicality gives some protection.
Yeah. Well, part of the reason I do that is I don't want to absorb the vegetable product, the gelatin, because I'm trying to intermittent fast.
Well, one of the things, the tests that I would carry out very often is dissolution. The whole point of it is to look at the various stages that will be replicated in the body when a tablet goes into dissolution. In other words, when it's dissolved, at what pH specific does the coating dissolve.
Right.
And I could tell you one of the tests that I would regularly do, as soon as it hits acid, if there is any sort of crack on that coating, if it doesn't have a full 360-degree coating, a lot of it gets destroyed.
Wow.
In acid. Yeah. So this has been on my mind for quite a while. And then I heard you saying that you take, I know you talked about intermittent therapy, but you were saying you take the 5 mg once a week. And I think recently you said you're going to try and take it twice a week, isn't it?
Oh, now I take it, I moved it closer together. So I'm taking it every 5th day. And I'm going to move it
I'm very
one day closer to every 4th day.
How have you found it, taking it when you are once a week?
Well, I was able to maintain a lot of hair taking it once a week, and I've essentially taken it once a week for at least a decade or more, maybe 15 years. So I believe, unless I was completely wrong about my genetics and I wasn't losing my hair to begin with, that it slowed the progression of my hair loss significantly, and it worked taking it once a week. Now, most doctors you speak to say that they don't understand how that would work, but the whole point is if you load up your body enough and your DHT, it takes about 2 weeks for your DHT to get back to baseline after finasteride is out of your body. That's 2 weeks. So say finasteride stays in your body for 24 hours, and then the effects of DHT start to rise after 48 hours, and it takes 2 weeks for it to get back to normal. If you're constantly suppressing that before it gets back to a point where it's affecting your hair, then it kind of makes sense that 1 dosage a week could theoretically work. I felt that it did.
Yeah.
Your explanation is...
Probably
Go ahead.
Conditioned.
Say that again?
Well, to it because you've been taking it. You're probably conditioned to it because you've been taking it so long, and there's a constant concentration in your body, whatever that may be.
Right. So that's why I would always I would say it on the air, and I would tell doctors that I kind of feel there's like a loading period. And if you load up on it for 6 months, and your body is used to your DHT levels being, you might be able to back off of it a little bit and maintain your results. I felt that that's what happened with me. I'm losing some ground now. I'm noticing more shedding, so I am upping my dosage. And my hope is that, I'll slowly titrate. And my hope is that I'll start to see things go back to where they were before, and just with having a little bit more in my body. So to answer your question, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I never really thought about that, but as a chemist, you kind of know this stuff. So you were quartering it this entire time.
So I've been quartering it for 6 years. And now there's a couple of more elements to this. I'll tell you in a minute. But I had great maintenance for about maybe, I'd say 4 years. And I know I've looked at the curve that the Rossmann has up. After 2 years, it slowly reduces after efficacy. And I noticed similar again after those few years that it's just I wasn't quite. I was starting to lose a bit of ground.
Right.
But yet I had done nothing different. And I need to up the game going forward, because here's the punchline. I've had 2 transplants.
Ah.
There you go.
So I did a strip first. I got the hairline band done. That was fantastic. And
Where'd you go?
Mainly placing.
You got to share that.
I will indeed. So I had a wonderful experience, and I could tell you anything about it. So I went to Poland, and I went to Dr. Marvin Saifi, and I did a lot of research before. Believe me, an awful lot, and it was 100% the best investment I've ever made.
So what did you say? You went to Poland?
Poland, yeah, Wrocław. Awesome. Dr. Marvin Saifi, he's been doing transplants, I think, since '96, and
it's SAIFI, right, or something like that.
Yeah, and a diplomat as well of the American Board of Hair Restoration, and he does both strip and FUE. He's had the same technicians for, believe it or not, 12 years.
I would like to say that means something, but it really doesn't. But it's good that you have a great hair transplant surgeon.
Yeah. Well, I've had tremendous success with them twice.
Yeah.
And we did the band, and I really wanted to strip first time. He wanted to do an FUE, but I wanted to do a strip because I wanted to keep, as much of my donor in as best condition as possible. And I know that everything above and below that strip would have been untouched, So I didn't want to do the FUE first. So I got the hairline band. I said that was terrific. But I had an absence of temporal peaks. And I know, Joe, this is a particular interest to you, temporal points. So I went back to him with the temporal points a year ago.
Joe's a temporal point fanatic.
Oh, no, I'm
really am.
Absolutely. The framing is brilliant now. And very flat angles, nice fine single grafts as well. That was done by FUE. Now, I wanted to do it as a strip again, but he recommended, let's do this one as an FUE, because he'll be able to cherry pick the grafts himself, and it was the right call. I have absolutely nothing but... I
wonder why, I'm looking at the site, I wonder why this guy never applied to the IHS. He's been around for a long time.
I don't know.
He looks
from my experience, I will stick with him for the rest of my life.
That's great. There's nothing like that. There's nothing like finding the right physician, having a great experience twice.
And yet I know patients that went to a great doctor and had a great result, and then they went to a different doctor for their second surgery and had a shit result, and then they come to me and say, what happened? My first question is, why did you switch clinics? And they're like, I just wanted to try something different.
Yeah, they read about it online or some fucking forum or some shit.
Fuck, it's so stupid. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, with him, I knew after the first surgery that I was in very good hands, and I felt confident going back to him. And on both occasions, he was able to deliver more than my expectations were, which is incredible.
Okay.
And I can't quite describe the feeling. It's just, it's positively life-changing, as you know. It's very difficult to describe it unless you've gone through it and come out the other side with a positive outcome.
Oh, dude, that's great. I love hearing positive stories, man. And
this has changed my life. I've lived my 20s now. I basically don't feel like I have hair loss. That's the thing. I forget that I've had a transplant, and every time when I look in the mirror, I'm like, I like that. You know, it just brings a smile to my face. I go to the barber every 2 weeks, and I was careful though as well to come up with a plan because I'm European. See, here's the thing. I'd love to show you actually my case because it is a video on YouTube, and maybe I'll send you an email with a link to it at some point.
Okay.
But I had, I had an asymmetrical hairline to begin with, so I wasn't exactly the kind of guy that if you looked at me, you'd say he needs a transplant. I really wanted to fix that to improve the symmetry and the framing to my face because something was off. And that's what we did. We concentrated on the hairline, didn't do any sort of radical work to it. He left the widow's peak alone, which was a brilliant decision because it has natural nuances to it. So there's no, to look at it, and I told a few people about it, and they're shocked because it doesn't look like a transplant. It doesn't look artificial. I feel incredibly lucky because even when I went there to start, I didn't know half as much as I do now because it's such a learning curve. Every single week, every month, I'm learning something new about it.
Well, listen, man, it's so rare to hear somebody who's so enthusiastic and so happy about their hair transplant result. And I like the idea that, well, first of all, like you said, so when you say you're a chemist, does that mean you, in your country, does that mean you're a pharmacist or you work for a lab as a chemist?
I work in pharmaceuticals, so
Okay.
I would actually analyze the drugs through quality control and then sign off if it's okay for product release.
So
I want to hear your take on sorry to interrupt. I want to hear your take on generics. Are they identical to the original?
I wouldn't go near the generics. Brand.
Boom! Now we need to clarify. We need to all disclosures. Were you asked to call into the show for this?
No.
Okay, there we go. But he reinforces our position.
So you'd say that for every drug, not just for finasteride.
I would always stick with the brand.
Now the problem is if you're hospitalized, you don't get the brand. If you are, the only way that you, and most people's insurance, at least in this country, don't provide.
Let me tell you, money, cut corners. If a quality control gets impacted, just trust me. And when you're taking a product, a pharmaceutical product, you want the absolute integrity of quality control. But you want it to work as well. It's not just quality control. You want it to do its job.
Dude, there are stories of anti-rejection drugs that are, one person's they're on brand name and then they're put on a different generic and they fucking, lose their fucking organs. I mean, this shit happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a brand whore. I have health insurance. Pay a lot of money for my health insurance because part of my insurance allows us to get brand name pharmaceuticals for a set cost.
Exactly.
So I pay about $1,000 more a month just to have that. Luckily, I mean, unless all hell breaks loose and we do actually end up having completely socialized medicine, I'll still have that option. But, I do that because I'm a believer like you. And, you're a fucking chemist.
Oh, I only take the brands. Only.
Good to know.
All right, man. Well, listen, we're going to, hold on, Joe, did you want to take another call? Because it's late, man.
Well, we got this guy that's also in the I guess caller now is in Ireland, not the UK. So we got another guy that's been trying to call from the UK, and he's on hold right now.
All right, we'll take him.
On one of the lines.
Yeah, let him take. Let him take it. I've had my moment with you.
All right, man. Well, listen, thanks so much.
Thanks anyway.
Real glad you called in.
And let us know. Let me know if you decide to change to maybe taking, once a week or twice a week, taking a 5 milligram dose of Proscar. See how you do.
I will. I'm going to give it a fair bit more thought, but I will let you know.
Well, you're a pharmacist, man. You're a chemist, so I mean, I would like to know your opinion. I can tell you that based on my experience, again, going against all physicians' advice, it seemed to have held off my hair loss for a very long time.
I can see it by literally looking at the screen.
Well,
it's done its job.
Yeah, it's a sham, but I kept a lot.
Well, it looks great.
Thank you, man. All right, you take care. Thanks so much for the call.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, take care.
Talk to you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
This is the last call.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is David from Wolverhampton, UK.
David, welcome, man.
Hello, David. You got through.
Yeah, finally. How are you guys?
You know what? We're okay, man. I'm actually going to order some food while I'm speaking to you.
Nice. Go ahead.
So what's going on? What can we help you with?
So I just need a little bit of advice on finasteride and when the right time is to do a hair transplant for me. I can give you a bit of background. I'm 26. Doing hair loss for the last 2 years. Started on 0.25 milligram finasteride since January for about 6 months. Felt like it didn't do much. Kind of felt like it got worse, but I also had a lot of stress during that period, so I thought that could have affected it.
It can.
And then I thought I didn't want to throw the kitchen sink at it. I wanted to stay away from minoxidil. And then I upped the dosage to 3 milligram a week. Got minor side effects, manageable. And since then, whenever I sort of put my hand through my hair, I don't have many hairs. Most of the time it's 0 hairs on my hands, when usually before I used to have always 2 or 3, 4 sometimes.
But even two or three would be pretty normal.
So I also had seborrheic dermatitis, not severe but minor. But I also heard that can cause shedding. But I treated that with some tea gel shampoo, and it cleared it immediately.
Yeah, that can cause issues. It can exacerbate existing hair loss, and it can cause hair loss in people that don't even have it normally from traditional reasons like DHT sensitivity. So I've dealt with that in the past, and that's imperative to get under control. So if you've done that, then good for you.
So what I'm trying to figure out is, was it the 3 milligram dosage that has slowed the hair loss down, or was it me controlling the dandruff, the dermatitis, and then that kind of leads
it could it could be from both, because if you weren't having a noticeable improvement from the 1/4 milligram that you're taking, and then upping your dosage, not having any sort of scalp conditions, that can help. That's a lot of people will do that, even if they're taking the regular dosage of 1 milligram or 1.25 as some doctors prescribe it. And over time, they may increase their dosage beyond that. I've done that. I know people that would take the full, like if they're getting the 5 milligram tablet, they take the full 5 milligram tablet every day. And so, yeah, I mean, that could be it. But then as far as like the scalp issue, absolutely clearing that up is a major requirement, because what's happening is the skin cells are cycling much faster than the unaffected skin cells, and so that's the shedding. So your skin on your scalp is actually peeling off or shedding off, and is taking these hairs with it. And you get that under control, then of course that will help the aesthetics of your scalp as well. But then both of them combined, it could be quite the turnaround.
So that almost leads me to the next part. So I've I've got my hair's very deceiving. It looks like when you look at me, I've got a full head of hair, but one side of the temple is receded about an inch, whilst the other has receded half an inch.
Let me guess. Let me guess. It's the right side.
No, my left side actually.
Okay.
And it's really.
Are you left-handed?
No. It's really
No?
strange
Okay.
because when I shaved my hair about 3 years ago, I noticed that the left side of my hair was a lot thinner than the right side of my hair.
Mhm.
But I never realised I had hair loss then until sort of the last probably year or so, I realised it's quite severe. And even the left side of the crown is also thinning, so it's really strange. But the doctor, the hair specialist I've spoken to said this can be quite normal also, so it was a little bit more reassuring. But the hair is quite deceiving. The crown's thinning, which is a bit more visible now. And I'm in the position where I need to establish, has the finasteride and the controlling of the scalp stabilized my hair loss, and am I in a position where I'm ready for a hair transplant now, to patch up the areas which are thinned off? Because I asked myself the question, am I happy with my hair currently? And the answer is no, because on a windy day I'm so scared in case that left side of my hair sort of blows away and exposes the bulb.
How old are you again?
He knew that question was coming. 26.
26. Yeah, I mean that's.
Yeah, 27 soon.
Look, man, that's, it's funny when you are 26 or 27, you don't realize how young you are, but that's really young, and you're still so close to remembering what your hair was like before it all started. That anxiety sucks. That anxiety of feeling like you're going to be exposed. But besides the wind and besides that fear of exposure, like when you're just walking around normally, I think you said it appears like you have a full head of hair.
Yeah, to a certain extent, apart from the crown, which is a little bit thinner because there's not enough coverage there.
Have you had any of your mates or girlfriends or anybody ever comment on your hair?
Yeah, so the first time it happened was at work. Somebody said it in front of everybody. And I already knew it, but
What did they say?
It's going off on top a bit, isn't it? Something along those lines.
Motherfuckers, man.
And there's like a stab in the heart, like.
I have been there. I've been there, and it was done by a supposed good friend of mine in front of a girl who was chatting me up at a bar. And it was a horrible feeling, man. So I completely, I do what I do because I was you. I was in that position, and I had that mindset and anxiety, which I still have to some degree. So I understand that, my only concern is when you are 26 years old and you still are able to cover your hair loss to the point where it looks relatively full. There are options that are available to you as far as cosmetics that could really help as well. A hair transplant could just kind of catapult you into a situation where you have far less hair. You're kind of like in a position where sometimes you have too much hair to have a hair transplant, in my opinion. I don't know, Joe. What do you think?
Well, I was going to ask, what else have you done besides using finasteride? Have you considered any sort of non-surgical treatments like PRP? Have you considered investing in a cheap laser cap from Alibaba? Have you even considered concealers to where you can avoid all of that and just maintain your medication and use concealers to patch up, as you said, the issues? Have you considered those?
Yeah, so I actually have the powder concealers, and I use it whenever, because I play sports regularly, and I've stopped playing sports because when I sweat and it gets windy, it exposes too much, and I can't play the same I used to because I'm still thinking about it so much. So even then I pile on the powder and the spray, and it covers it to an extent, but I'm not comfortable.
See, what happens is, because you have such a level of discomfort and it's magnified to a degree that, and I'm in the same mindset as you, and I was, especially at your age. When you go the surgical route, believing that this is what you're going to need to feel comfortable, fully comfortable in your own skin, and you're depending on that, if there's an issue, it can put you in a much worse emotional position. So you have to be prepared emotionally for a failure. If you cannot live with that failure, then you have to realize that you're putting yourself at much greater risk. Does that make sense?
I heard Spencer talking about the issue of having too much hair. Your crown area, you said, is visibly thinning. Is it visibly thinning to you, or is it visibly thinning to everyone? Like I heard you say that it was commented on, but was that the hairline, or was it the crown that was commented on?
At the time, it was the mid scalp and the crown, because I had just used what's that pink shampoo called, really strong one, Zarev. I used that and it frizzed out my hair, so it made it look even worse the next day at work. And it got commented on, and just really made my confidence up completely.
The issue of the crown is that not only can a procedure, anywhere in your scalp, a surgery can induce a telogen effluvium or shock, but recreating the crown, especially when the crown is already it's still there, that's even more difficult for the average hair transplant doctor. Like you got to find a doctor that really knows what the hell they're doing with crown work, and that's not every good hair transplant doctor out there. So that's a challenge that you gotta be aware of. But ultimately, look, I know what you're going through. I went through very extreme hair loss at a very young age, and I can tell you that when it doesn't go well, if you don't have the fortitude to accept it, like I didn't know if you had asked me would I have the fortitude to accept it, I would have said no, but I was forced to live with it. So it's like, what else am I going to do? Jump off a bridge? No, I gotta fucking live with it. So that is a very real possibility, like Spencer said. But I think that, I mean, it's hard for you to hear this, I know, because you want to do something about it, and no matter what we tell you, you're going to maybe try to do something, which we would urge you against. But I think that before you even really get down that path of pulling the trigger on surgery, please try everything else. Like, consider non-medical or non-surgical, like PRP with a clinic that has a good reputation. Not just any clinic like down the street next to the pub that just happens to offer PRP and doesn't even do hair surgery. Like, there's so many of those, especially in the UK, where everyone's offering PRP. Dentist offices are offering PRP.
UK is the original black market of this industry.
Yeah, it really is. So you gotta really be careful, man. Really be careful, because if there's one thing that's universal, every clinic wants your money. Every single one of them, and it's the ones that will stop you and say you need to take a break on this. Those are the ones that you want to consider sticking with, because if they're going to put the brakes on, then they're doing it obviously because it's in your best interest, not in theirs. But these non-surgical treatments, they can work, at least for long enough to where you can feel better about yourself and not feel lost. Because like PRP and all variations of that, and there's so many variations of it, and sometimes they're not even called PRP, they're temporary, just like with medication. If you stop going for your treatments once a year or however often you're supposed to go, then eventually any hair that it's saved or even regrown will fall out, because they're treatments, not cures. If you only had to go for a few times and then you could expect to not need a treatment ever again, then that would be a cure. And that's not what these are. So anything that you find out there is an ongoing commitment for life, basically. even a laser cap, which you can get, on AliExpress or Alibaba.com. You can get them for 150 pounds, but you got to keep using it. Maybe, I don't know how frequently, 2 or 3 times a week or whatever. Try those. Try everything but surgery, because you can walk away from everything else. You can't walk away from surgery. Everywhere you go, it's going to be on your head.
And I can tell you that the vast majority of the people who are the most depressed about the hair loss process, at least in my career, are those who had surgery young and regretted it. These are the guys that really, they were sold a bill of goods. And now there are guys who've had it relatively young who've had successes, and that happens. But with your type of hair loss, it's going to be more difficult. If you're really just trying to fill in the crown and the mid-anterior scalp, it's more difficult. You need a lot of grafts, or you could end up, losing a lot of hair to shock loss. It's a tough call, man. I can't 100% talk somebody out of surgery if they are possibly a decent candidate, and I don't know, I'm not a physician, but it sounds like, you're obviously depressed about it, you're very emotional about it, and you are the perfect victim for these clinics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I spoke to...
I'm sorry?
I spoke to 2 or 3 clinics. One of them was yesterday, and he's fairly reputable from Leeds. I don't know if I can mention names.
Sure.
Absolutely.
His name's Dr. Arshad. I think it's Hair Doctor Clinic, it's called, or something like that, in Leeds. And
what makes him reputable?
I think he got major sponsors from football teams in top flight football, and he's appeared in a lot of the top newspapers in the UK.
Right, but what makes him what makes him reputable? Anyone can get if they luck out and happen to do a decent hair transplant on a footballer and they get a lot of press, it doesn't mean they're any good. It just means that they happen to get this patient.
Yeah, I guess there's no real way. I think it's hard to see who's a good doctor, in my opinion. I think the way it was sold was that he only specialises in hair transplants, whereas other surgeons are a doctor on the side and do hair transplants on the side.
Yeah, and a lot of that's the case. And this guy may be great. Do you know who this guy is, Joe?
I'm looking at his gallery now. The name rings a bell. I think he reminds me of someone that I've spoken to in the past. I don't think it was him. There was a guy in the UK that wanted some direction on his clinic. I don't think it was this guy though. All
right, so what? So
I'm looking at. I want to his credentials, and it's a list of newspapers across the bottom in ISHRS, Real Self, Care Quality Commission. He's on a forum, or at least he's listed there. He's got Anyway, sorry.
Is he part of the British Association?
So I spoke to somebody from the team, and they said send us a load of pictures. And I showed them my picture without me spreading the hair and exposing the hair loss. And then I showed them, obviously, the ones exposing it. And they said the same thing, it's very deceiving. And what they said was they would recommend something like between 2,000 and 2,500 grafts. Took a clear picture of my donor area, and they said I've got an excellent donor area. And they charge around £3 per graft. So it was around between £4,000 and £5,500, which is, I would say, on the upper price of what I've seen in the UK.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's very possible that these guys do great work. It's very possible that he's totally legitimate, and it's very possible that
he applied. He applied to my website a year ago.
Give him a call. He may have applied to the IHRS. very possible. But yeah, I mean, here's the thing. They may believe they could help you. Did you deal with a doctor or did you deal with a consultant?
It was a consultant.
Okay.
But I
Consultants,
want to speak with the doctor first.
most of the time, the
surgeon is gonna do
consultant,
it.
most of the time, the consultant is always going to say they can help you. They'll give you an assessment. Most of the time. So you have to go there. You have to see the physician. You have to speak with the physician. You need to get an in-person assessment of your situation because, you're dealing with crown loss. And you can ask to speak with and to maybe meet with some patients or at least one patient who had similar hair characteristics, your type of pattern, and maybe who had hair transplants in the crown by this doctor. And it seems like a lot of work, right? That's a lot of work because you're having surgery.
Yeah. And the reason why I feel like now is a perfect time is because we're all working from home. We won't be in the office for another 6 months. So now appears to be the perfect time.
Well, first of all, I will tell you, it sounds like you need a drink. So you don't sound, you sound a little bit, obviously I know you're a little depressed about this, and it's a tough situation to be in. We've all been there, but I just don't want you to make a hasty decision based on comments that you got from your friends, or based on fear of what is going to happen with your future loss, because you don't know exactly where you're going to be. Now, it may be a time when you actually really, really need a hair transplant, and you don't have the opportunity to cover your loss. Right now, you're in a position where it can be camouflaged. So let me ask you, if you were able to stop the progression of your hair loss or slow it down considerably, would you be satisfied with the situation right now? I know that you kind of answered that question. You said that you're not satisfied with your hair right now, but if you knew that you would stop it, if it wouldn't get any worse, and you knew that you could use concealer to make it look good, like 100%.
Tough question, but I still think I'd feel that I think it would need to be improved. It would always be in the back of my mind.
I can tell you that I need to be improved too.
Just because many of the sports that I do.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm older than you. I could be your father, but I am, as one guy said to me the other day, he wishes he had as much energy as I did. That was a real fucked up comment, but for my age. But I work out when I was able to. I play basketball. Now courts are closed. They can't have any contact sports. For whatever reason, at my stage in life, I'm still able to do all that stuff, which is great. And my hair gets really fucked up, and it sucks. And I'll throw a hat on, and I'll do what I have to do. So I understand it. I just think that you really need to think long and hard about going under the knife, because once you're cut, that's it. There's no coming back from it. And if it doesn't work out, you're fucked. And that's the only advice I can give you. Joe?
Take it slow, man. Take it slow. I mean, that's all there is to it. Don't rush into this, because the way you feel now could be like a walk in the park compared to how you feel if you do go forward with surgery and you're not happy with it. Because I've seen it way too many times, man, where guys just like you, feeling desperate, feeling down. I totally get it, man. I've been there, but
dude, you make me. I'm listening to this guy. I want to have a cigarette.
I know,
and a drink.
But it's like, you're looking at the cost of what a surgery would be with these different clinics. Imagine what it will cost to get it fixed.
To fix it, yeah.
If it doesn't work out the first time. You think 4,000 or 5,000 pounds is a lot of money? Double that, triple that. Because most times, depending on what was done, if you have a bad first surgery, it takes 2 surgeries to get it back to where you look like you never had surgery again. That's something very, very few people talk about, but it's a fact. So keep that in mind, man. Like, it's not easy It's not easy just walking in and picking it, just picking a clinic, walking in and having it done and then expecting it to be perfect. It rarely works out like that. So please be careful.
So happy
and
Friday.
Please call us back and let us know. Yeah, happy Friday. Happy fucking Friday. But please do call us back and in the future and let us know what you're doing and how, what you've decided to do and how it's working out for you.
Okay, I will do. What's the best way to, if I go ahead with the transplant, how do I know who the best person is to do the procedure? For example, this Dr. Arshad person, how do I know? Does he check out? Or?
Well, start by looking at clinics that are members of the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons, IAHRS. Okay. No guarantees with anyone.
No guarantees.
It doesn't matter how good the doctor is or supposedly is. Every doctor out there has got patients that are pissed off at them. Every one. And if they don't, it's because they just got started. And they're not members of the IAHRS because you can't just be a new doctor and be on the IAHRS. So all of those guys have unhappy patients. What separates them, among other things, is how they deal with the patients afterwards, and also like education beforehand, things like that. And they usually operate at a higher level than average clinics. But even they can fuck up, and they do. Like I know many people that have been screwed up by IAHRS doctors. So
I just got a complaint from a really well-known, well-heeled guy.
Yeah.
And I mean, I won't even mention his name, but if you heard the name, people would be like, "Really? It happens." Yeah. It reminds me, I got to respond to that guy.
So just keep that in mind. But that is a great place to start. And find one that's in the UK. Consider some that aren't in the UK.
Let's put it this way: you guys are going to be locked down to some degree for a long time. Don't kid yourselves.
Yeah,
you're going to be working from home for a while, so you have time to make this decision. Don't rush into it.
He also says that if he guarantees 95% of the grafts to work.
Yeah, that's a bad sign. How do you guarantee 95% of the grafts are going to grow? These are organs. They're being manipulated. They're being handled. They're being moved. Who's going to count the grafts? How are they going to count them? Are they going to go in there? Are they taking some sort of a micro photography? And are they mapping every graft and where it's placed? And then are they taking images at the same angle to see if every graft grew? It's all bullshit. They have no clue. If 95% of the grafts actually grow well, then that's a home run.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Dude, you sound like you're slipping away from us the more I talk to you, but I'm really just trying, and I understand it. I know what it's like to be disappointed, but we have to give you a shot of reality before you make a mistake that can possibly affect the rest of your life.
Because none of these doctors will. No doctor will sit here and tell you that you are potentially making a huge mistake. We don't like saying this. Like, I wish I could tell you that, you know what, just go to Dr. X, everything will be fine. And you call, and I know that you'd call up in 6 months or a year and say, God damn, that's some great advice. Thank you. I can't do that. Spencer can't do that.
Why do you think
anyone that says they can do that, they're after something. They want your money.
Why do you think there's only one person on this show who's hosting this program who had hair transplants? Yeah. I could have anybody in the world give me a hair transplant. Anybody in the world would love, the best of the best, would love to transplant me. And I choose not to because I have too much hair to lose. And I was lucky enough to make this assessment early on in my hair loss career and my hair loss journey, and then, of course, in my career doing this, to realize, shit, you know what? I would like to look better. I would like not to have to put as much hairspray on my hair. I would like to not use makeup. And I would like to fix this thinning spot and my recessed hairline, but it can end up really badly for me. So I'm going to wait and see how I do. And that's it.
When would you say I should wait until?
Well, I'm 55, dude, and I still haven't had it done. So, I mean, it really depends on if you progress. If you progress to the point where you can no longer go outside looking normal, like the way that you feel, like if you could leave the house and look in the mirror and say, I feel like I look good, and you're relatively comfortable, even though you know it's a little bit of a sham, then you're probably not in a position to have a hair transplant yet. Once it gets to the point where you can't do that anymore, then you might want to reassess things. But that could be 2 years from now or 3 years from now. You may have a different mindset. You may say, I may buzz my head to a number 2. I may be fine with that, or whatever. Or there may be something that comes down the pipeline that is more effective than some other treatments that we have. You're biding time for yourself.
You certainly put me off it a bit.
Well, we want to...
Or made me think about it.
We want you to think about it. It's not about putting you off. It's about thinking about it and realizing this is a big step. This is for real. This is life-altering, either for good or for bad. And there's a chance that it could be... Once you go under the knife once, there's almost a 95% chance that you're going to go for a second procedure. So it's a process that you're starting. It takes a year for you to find out what the end result is. And you may go through a roller coaster of shock loss and all kinds of shit in a really bad, ugly duckling phase that fucks you up for a year of your life.
Even with great hair transplant results, the surgery is the easy part. It's the waiting that will fuck you up. It is a roller coaster like you've never dreamt of. 6 weeks out, is it growing?
But don't forget to check out Joe's recommended list. Just kidding.
What's that?
But don't forget to check out Joe's recommended list.
But don't forget to check out my yeah, exactly. No, but it's and this is another thing that people don't talk about, that clinics don't talk about. Surgery's easy, relatively speaking. It's over within a day. The hard part is waiting between day 1 and month 7. That's the hard part.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, just based on your current tone, I don't think that you. And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm certainly not a psychologist, but I don't think that you are currently, at least as of this moment, equipped for a possible failure emotionally. Would you say I'm correct about that?
Caller?
I don't know. Maybe I'm rushing into things, possibly.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, we're going to let you go. I'm glad that you had an opportunity to speak to us. Just take your time. Call us again anytime we're on the air. Don't make a decision until you speak to as many clinics and as many physicians as you can. But try to at least speak to a doctor, not just a consultant.
Yeah. Okay.
All right?
Okay.
All right, man. Try to have a good night.
Well, thanks, guys.
Thanks for the call.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye. I'm really glad I got rid of that noose because
I'm telling you.
And I bought that bottle of bourbon because I am ready, and the pack of cigarettes.
It's unfortunate they just happened to install like a bunch of mattresses at the bottom floor of below my balcony, or else I'd be jumping.
You know what's really sad, and I'm not even joking. I mean, this happened here.
I know.
A billionaire.
A billionaire
jumped to his death.
Went sailing straight down.
25 floors. Right in the
Did he
dri-
have a stack of hundreds in each hand, trying to flap.
Right in the fucking driveway. He drifted about 20 feet.
I was going to say he moved his sliding glass door open, went back into the hallway of his unit, and just sprinted, and then did a
Takes fucking balls,
did a
man.
jump.
I gotta tell you.
I know, right?
Like, I would say this is really morbid, but you know, you blow your brains out fast. You know?
Yeah, you don't have a chance to change your mind.
Yeah.
If you jump,
it's like, oh shit.
3 seconds later, oh no, I don't want to, but you're stuck.
Yeah.
Just 2 more seconds later, you're done.
Yeah. Pills work. You know?
Yeah. Wow. Okay, everyone. Enjoy your weekend.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Now, look, here's the thing. I have been that guy, and there are times I am that guy, but I've been that guy. And it's tough, man. It's a tough fucking position to be in. I remember calling doctors up. I remember calling this guy Proctor's office, all these guys that were out there for years selling shit. And just hoping against hope that I was going to be helped by somebody. I mean, that's why I do what I do, because I realized pretty early on, I'm like, all these motherfuckers are trying to con me, man. They're taking advantage. I'm depressed and I'm vulnerable. Dude, I told you, I was an athlete. I didn't drink in high school. Like, I wasn't a guy to go to bars or get drunk or anything. Totally straight-laced.
I was kind of straight-laced. Not
hair loss, I was just like, wow, this alcohol, this gives me fucking liquid courage, man. I can go out and get laid. I can have fun. I don't have to worry about my hair.
Yep. Not anymore.
Fucked me up, man. It fucked me up. And that's why I do what I do.
All right.
Can we go home?
Well,
guys, we have calls, but I'm not going to take any. Dude, I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to turn off the phones. I appreciate the calls. Should have called earlier.
Gotta get some work done.
I gotta get that promo out, which I forgot to do. It's ready. It's sitting there. It's in queue.
Damn it.
All right, guys, the website.
Do it now.
Thebaldtruth.com. Archives of this broadcast every once in a while. I will say that someone asked if they volunteered to start to put up the podcast. I'm going to let them do it. I'll tell you off the air, Joe.
Okay.
Now, obviously, people can see recordings of the show and the podcast, the video, on Joe Tillman's YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/hair transplant mentor. I do notice, though, that the recording, that YouTube compresses the sound all the time. I hate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The native sound is so much better. I got to get that out there for everybody.
Especially with this sexy microphone that I'm using.
You got a
Someone
compliment.
commenting on it last
You
week.
got a compliment on your mic.
Yes.
SM7.
It was funny because
which is a really good mic.
The guy says, what he said, what mic are you using? Sounds really great, blah, blah, blah. And I said, it's a Shure 7MB, S7MB.
S7MB.
Or S7B, whatever it is. And I said, same one that Joe Rogan's using and other podcasters. His response was, yeah, I don't like Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not about liking him or not. He's like the #1 podcaster in the world.
But
And this is the microphone
You
he
actually
uses.
have your settings really good lately. I noticed a change for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know what you did, but it has more. It definitely has
I stopped
more.
holding back.
It has more body to it. I would say that on YouTube, my setup sounds more compressed. When it's native, there's no compression. It sounds, like if I would just upload this to YouTube, it would sound like really crystal. But I'm not going to change my settings for YouTube. Fuck it. I like the way it is.
No, screw it.
And, but yeah, your mic is, I love this. I actually, Common Law has one of those now. So,
I noticed that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, all right, man. We're going to call it a night. Guys, thank you so much. It is late here. I'm waiting for my food. The International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons, if you're considering hair transplant surgery, I founded the organization just about 20 years ago. It's unbelievable that it's been around so long, dude. Should have a seal on there. I have a feeling a lot of the guys from the ISHRS didn't think that we would be part of the fabric of this field after 20 years.
Most likely not.
But we're still here. I'm not going anywhere, motherfuckers.
He talks about it.
Yeah, what am I going to do?
And he tries, but I keep pulling him back in.
Well, honestly, I would feel less stressed because the other side of this industry is so stressful. I enjoy doing the show. And what else would I do, really? You know? Sit on the beach? Get drunk all day? I could do that and work.
Well, I was going to say, you can do that and work.
Yeah.
That'd be a great podcast.
Actually, that would be fun. We'll see what happens after the pandemic. All right, guys, ihrs.org, AmericanHairLoss.com for the American Hair Loss Association. Joe's personal website is HairTransplantMentor.com. Message forum, baldtruthtalk.com. Can't believe that thing is still running. It just keeps going.
It doesn't die.
I tell people not to go, and the traffic goes up. That's baldtruthtalk.com. Until next time, guys, be strong, God bless, and thank you so much for listening. Take care.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the programme, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you. Good night.